Burn the Bridges, The All-or-Nothing Path to Courage and Triumph. Copyright 2025 Brian Eris. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including photocopying, recording, or other electronic or mechanical methods, without the prior written permission of the copyright holder, except in the case of brief quotations embodied in critical reviews and certain other non-commercial uses permitted by copyright law. Preface. Look around you. How many people do you see truly living, really fighting for what they want? Not many, right? Most are stuck. They're held captive by fear, by doubt, by that nagging voice that whispers, "What if it doesn't work out?" They cling to backup plans, to escape routes, to anything that cushions the fall. They call it being smart. I call it cowardice. This isn't a self-help book that will coddle your fears. It won't give you warm, fuzzy feelings or tell you it's okay to fail. This book is a gut punch. It's a rallying cry. It's about lighting a fire under your comfortable, complacent ass and forcing you to face the truth. If you want extraordinary results, you must take extraordinary action. We're going to talk about burning bridges, not in some metaphorical, wishy-washy way. I'm talking about the deliberate, brutal act of destroying your retreat options, every single one of them. Because when going backward is no longer an option, when failure means catastrophe, something primal awakens within you. That's when true courage ignites. That's when you discover capabilities you never knew you possessed. This isn't a story of reckless abandon. It's a testament to the power of unshakable commitment. When the stakes are life or death, or at least the death of your comfort zone, you find a way. You innovate. You persevere. You become relentless. This book will demand you look at your fears head-on. It will make you uncomfortable. It will expose the excuses you've built around yourself like a fortress. But it will also show you the path to triumph, a path forged by those who dared to stand on the edge of the abyss and jump, knowing the only way out was through. Your desire, that burning need that keeps you up at night, it's not a fantasy. It's a blueprint, but it demands more than just wanting. It demands an all-or-nothing mentality. No safety net. No plan B, just you, your burning desire, and the fierce, unyielding courage to make it happen. Are you ready to truly live? Are you ready to face the fire, because your bridge is about to burn? Part 1. The Philosophy of No Retreat explores the mindset, its psychological and philosophical roots, and why it's a powerful catalyst for courage. Chapter 1. The Courage to Commit. We all have that nagging voice, the one that whispers, "What if it doesn't work out?" It's the voice of caution, of self-preservation, and often of quiet desperation. It's the voice that convinces you to keep a backup plan, a fallback option, a parachute for when things go south. We cling to these safety nets like a drowning person to a life raft, believing they offer security. But what if that very security is holding you hostage? What if the perceived safety of a plan B is precisely what prevents you from achieving plan A? Look closely at the psychology of fear and hesitation. It's deeply rooted in our wiring. Our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and seek pleasure, to minimize risk and maximize survival. In primitive times, this served us well. Hesitation meant not stepping into the path of a predator. Fear meant not venturing into unknown, dangerous territory. But in the modern world, this ancient wiring often works against us. The predator isn't a saber-toothed tiger. It's the potential for financial loss, social embarrassment, or the sting of failure. This fear manifests as a relentless urge to keep our options open. We've been conditioned to believe that flexibility is strength, that having multiple paths is smart. We see it everywhere. The entrepreneur who keeps their safe corporate job, just in case their startup fails. The artist who works a soul-crushing day job because they're terrified of starving for their craft. The person who stays in a lukewarm relationship because the thought of being alone is unbearable. They are all clinging to backups, and in doing so, they are sacrificing their true desires on the altar of perceived safety. The problem with holding on to a plan B is that it unconsciously siphons energy and commitment from plan A. It's a psychological escape hatch. When the going gets tough, when obstacles seem insurmountable, the mind naturally drifts to the path of least resistance, the backup. Why push through agonizing difficulty when there's an easy way out? This isn't laziness. It's a form of cognitive dissonance. Our brains are constantly trying to resolve internal conflicts. If you have two competing paths, your mind will expend energy debating which one to pursue, rather than focusing all its might on dominating one. Think of it like this. Imagine you're at the edge of a chasm. Your deepest desire is on the other side. You have two options. Option 1. You build a sturdy bridge, but you also construct a flimsy escape rope back to where you started, just in case. Option 2. You build the same sturdy bridge, but you then set fire to the ground behind you, ensuring there is absolutely no retreat. Which scenario compels you to build the strongest, most resilient bridge possible? Which scenario forces you to commit every fiber of your being to crossing that chasm? The answer is obvious. When retreat is eliminated, your focus narrows, your ingenuity sharpens, and your resolve solidifies. There's no time for doubt, no room for second guessing. All your resources, mental and physical, are directed toward forward momentum. This isn't just anecdotal. Psychological studies on commitment and decision-making bear this out. When people perceive their choices as irreversible, they tend to be more satisfied with their decisions and more motivated to make them work. The very act of cutting off retreat reduces decision fatigue, that mental drain caused by constantly weighing alternatives. When there's only one way forward, the mental energy once spent on deliberation is now channeled into execution. Courage, then, isn't some grand, heroic absence of fear. True courage is the decision to act despite fear, and crucially, to act with no way back. It's understanding that the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, is a constant companion on the path to greatness. But when you eliminate the option of retreat, you force yourself to transcend that fear. You harness its energy, transforming it from a paralyzing force into a potent fuel. The most profound transformations happen not when we're comfortable, but when we're cornered. When the only way out is through, you discover reservoirs of strength, creativity, and resilience you never knew existed. This is the ultimate act of courage, a deliberate, conscious choice to burn the bridges, to destroy the escape routes, and to commit everything you have to the path ahead. It's brutal, it's terrifying, and it's the only way to truly unleash your full potential. Eliminating options forces clarity and action. Let's delve deeper into this counterintuitive truth. The more options you have, the less likely you are to act decisively, and the more clarity eludes you. This isn't just a philosophical stance, it's a hardwired psychological phenomenon. When faced with an abundance of choices, a state psychologists call choice overload, we often become paralyzed. We defer decisions, or worse, we make a choice and then second-guess ourselves endlessly, undermining our own commitment. Consider the person who wants to start a business. They spend months, even years, researching every possible niche, every marketing strategy, every funding option. They read every book, attend every seminar. On the surface, this looks like thoroughness. In reality, it's often a sophisticated form of procrastination. Each new piece of information, each additional option, adds another layer of complexity, another reason to hesitate. Should I go into e-commerce or services? Should I bootstrap or seek investors? What if this market isn't as lucrative as that one? The sheer volume of choice breeds indecision. They are so busy analyzing paths that they never actually start walking one. Now imagine the same person but with a gun to their head. Not literally, of course, but with the metaphorical gun of no other options. Their previous job just evaporated. Their savings are dwindling. Their back is against the wall. Suddenly, the endless research becomes irrelevant. The nuances of different niches fade away. What emerges is brutal clarity. They must start something and they must make it work. The choices are no longer about optimizing for perfection, but about survival. This forced clarity strips away the non-essentials and illuminates the single, most viable path forward. Action becomes not just a possibility, but a necessity. This is the profound power of eliminating options. When you consciously, deliberately burn your bridges, you force a radical simplification of your reality. All the what-ifs and maybe-laters vanish. The mental clutter dissipates. You're left with one direction, forward. This singular focus is a superpower. It liberates your energy, which was previously fragmented across multiple potential paths, and channels it into a laser beam of intention. Think of an athlete training for the Olympics. They don't train for 3 different sports, just in case one doesn't work out. They commit to one discipline, often sacrificing nearly everything else in their lives for that singular pursuit. Their options are eliminated by choice, not by circumstance. They don't have a plan B of becoming an accountant if the gold medal doesn't materialize. Their entire being is oriented towards that one goal. This absolute commitment allows them to push past limits that would break someone with divided loyalties. Every training session, every meal, every hour of sleep is aligned with that one, non-negotiable objective. The clarity of their purpose fuels their action. Eliminating options also creates an immense psychological pressure, and pressure, when harnessed correctly, is a catalyst for extraordinary performance. When there's no fallback, the stakes are raised. This heightened awareness sharpens your senses, forces you to be more creative in problem solving, and compels you to find solutions where others would simply give up. You cannot afford the luxury of half-hearted effort or procrastination. Every action must count. Every decision must be precise. This intense focus, born from the absence of alternatives, unlocks a level of ingenuity and resilience that remains dormant when safety nets are present. The act of burning bridges is not merely about physical destruction. It's a psychological reset. It's a declaration to yourself, a visceral commitment that leaves no room for doubt or retreat. It forces you to confront the deepest fears that hold you back, and in doing so, reveals your true capacity for courage and action. When you cut off the escape routes, you don't just remove choices. You ignite an unstoppable drive that propels you toward your desired outcome with an intensity that few ever experience. This clarity, born from the furnace of commitment, is the bedrock of all true triumphs. Arguments to why all or nothing works. When we talk about the power of an all-or-nothing approach, we're not just speaking in metaphors. There's robust psychological science that explains why eliminating options works, transforming hesitant individuals into focused, relentless forces. 2 key concepts that shed light on this are cognitive dissonance and decision fatigue. First, let's consider cognitive dissonance. Introduced by Leon Festinger in the 1950s, this theory posits that we, as humans, strive for internal consistency. When our beliefs, attitudes, or behaviors conflict, it creates a state of psychological discomfort or dissonance. We are inherently motivated to reduce this discomfort. How does this relate to burning bridges? Imagine you have a deeply held desire, say, to launch a revolutionary new product, but you also keep your comfortable, high-paying corporate job as a safety net. This creates dissonance. Your desire for the new product conflicts with the security of your current employment. Your brain is constantly wrestling with this inconsistency. To reduce the discomfort, you might unconsciously downplay the importance of your new product, or you might find reasons to justify staying in your current job, telling yourself, "It's a good income and I need the stability." This mental back and forth drains your energy and dilutes your commitment. Now, what happens when you burn the bridge, when you quit that job with no plan B? The cognitive dissonance becomes unbearable. Your belief in your new product and your action of quitting your job are now in stark, undeniable alignment. There is no longer a conflict to resolve by rationalizing inaction. The only way to alleviate the immense psychological discomfort is to fully commit to making the new product a success. You are forced to dedicate all your mental and emotional resources to that one objective. The dissonance becomes a powerful motivator, compelling you to make your actions consistent with your now singular, undeniable belief. Your brain literally rewires itself to justify the massive, irreversible commitment you've made, reinforcing your conviction and driving you forward. Second, let's look at decision fatigue. Modern life, with its endless array of choices, is a breeding ground for this phenomenon. From what to wear, what to eat, to which email to answer first, our brains are constantly making decisions. Roy Baumeister and his colleagues pioneered research showing that our capacity for making good decisions is a finite resource. Each decision, no matter how small, depletes this mental energy. As this energy dwindles, the quality of our decisions deteriorates. We become more prone to procrastination, impulsivity, or simply avoiding decisions altogether. This is why judges are more lenient earlier in the day, or why people are more likely to make impulse purchases when they're mentally drained from shopping. For someone pursuing an ambitious goal, the constant weighing of options, the endless consideration of alternative paths, contributes significantly to decision fatigue. Should I invest more time here or there? Should I pivot this way or that? Each internal debate consumes precious mental energy, leaving less for the actual work of execution. By embracing an all-or-nothing mentality, you dramatically reduce decision fatigue. When you burn the bridges, you eliminate a vast spectrum of choices. There's no longer a debate about whether to stick with it or try something else. The path is singular. This reduction in cognitive load frees up immense mental energy. This liberated energy can then be channeled entirely into problem-solving, innovation, and persistent action towards your goal. You're not spending energy debating the route. You're using it to power the engine. In essence, the all-or-nothing approach isn't just a daring psychological stunt. It's a strategic maneuver. It leverages the inherent mechanisms of cognitive dissonance to forge unwavering commitment and combats decision fatigue by stripping away superfluous choices. It's a brutal, self-imposed clarity that forces your mind and body into alignment, transforming potential into undeniable, relentless action. When you cut off retreat, you don't just eliminate a path. You unleash a psychological force that makes winning not just an aspiration, but a deeply ingrained necessity. A lesson to consider. We have explored the psychological traps that keep us tethered to safety nets, and how eliminating options can forge an ironclad clarity. Now, let's confront a fundamental misunderstanding about courage itself. Many believe courage is the absence of fear, a serene state of unwavering confidence. This is a comforting delusion, but a dangerous one. If courage were the absence of fear, very few would ever achieve anything truly great. Fear is primal. It's ingrained. It's a fundamental part of the human experience when facing the unknown, the high stakes, or the potential for loss. The truth, raw and unvarnished, is this. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it with no way back. Consider the moments in history or even in your own life when true breakthroughs occurred. Were they born from a place of absolute calm and certainty? Rarely. More often, they emerged from a crucible of intense fear, doubt, and overwhelming odds. The individual standing at that precipice, heart pounding, palms sweating, but still taking that irrevocable step forward, that is courage. Think of the firefighter rushing into a burning building. Do you believe they feel no fear? Absolutely not. Their training, their commitment to their duty, and the immediate need to save lives compel them to act despite the terror. Their retreat is cut off by the very flames they face. Or consider a seasoned public speaker moments before stepping onto a massive stage. Even after years of practice, there's often a surge of adrenaline, a flutter of nerves. But they walk out, they take the microphone, and they deliver. They act despite the fear of judgment, the fear of forgetting their lines. The curtain has risen. There is no backing out gracefully. This is the essence of the burn the bridges mentality in action. It's not about becoming fearless. It's about making a deliberate choice to remove the option of retreat, thereby forcing yourself to confront and conquer your fear. When the safety net is gone, when the path backward has been obliterated, your mind no longer wastes energy contemplating retreat. It focuses entirely on navigating the fear, on finding a solution, on moving forward. This isn't about being reckless. It's about channeling the powerful energy of fear. When the stakes are high, when retreat is impossible, your senses heighten. Your focus intensifies. Your problem-solving abilities become sharper. The fear, rather than paralyzing you, becomes a potent fuel, igniting a fight-or-flight response that, in this context, forces you to fight like hell for your desired outcome. The lesson here is simple, yet profoundly difficult to internalize. You will feel fear. It will be present. It will try to whisper doubts in your ear to lure you back to the false comfort of inaction. But courage demands that you acknowledge that fear, look it square in the eye, and then take the step anyway. And the most effective way to ensure you take that step and keep taking steps is to make retreat impossible. When the bridge is burning behind you, there is only one direction to go. This brutal clarity, born from the absence of alternatives, transforms fear from a paralyzing force into the raw material for your triumph. Chapter 2: The Power of Burning Bridges. The concept of burning bridges is not some modern self-help gimmick. It is a timeless principle, a brutal truth recognized by strategists, philosophers, and leaders across civilizations for millennia. It's a testament to the fundamental human response when cornered: fight or perish. This isn't about novelty. It's about rediscovering a potent, ancient wisdom that has shaped empires and forged legends. Let's trace its origins, starting with one of the most revered military strategists in history, Sun Tzu. In his seminal work, The Art of War, written over 2 millennia ago, Sun Tzu meticulously outlines the concept of death-ground strategy. He instructs generals to place their troops in a situation where they have no alternative but to fight with all their might. "Throw your soldiers into positions whence there is no escape," he writes, "and they will prefer death to flight. If they will face death, there is nothing they will not achieve." Sun Tzu understood human psychology. When faced with a clear retreat path, soldiers, no matter how brave, will conserve energy, hesitate, and be more prone to disengage when the battle turns grim. But when placed on death ground, with their backs against a river or a mountain, retreat is physically impossible. This removes any mental or emotional reservation. Every ounce of their being is focused on the singular goal of victory, because the alternative is annihilation. Their desperation transforms into an unyielding ferocity that can overcome superior numbers or difficult terrain. This is the strategic equivalent of Cortés burning his ships. It's a deliberate act of creating a non-negotiable win condition. The echoes of this philosophy resonate in other ancient traditions as well. While not as overtly strategic, elements of Stoic philosophy align with the burning bridges mentality, albeit from a different angle. Stoicism, particularly as practiced by figures like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, emphasized focusing only on what is within one's control and accepting what is not. They advocated for mental fortitude and the cultivation of an inner citadel that is impervious to external fortune. How does this connect to burning bridges? The Stoics would argue that clinging to endless options, to plan BS, is an attempt to control the uncontrollable, the unpredictable nature of external events and the pain of potential failure. By accepting that certain outcomes are beyond your control, and by deliberately eliminating your own escape routes, you are choosing to focus all your energy on what you can control: your effort, your response, your unwavering commitment to a single path. You are stripping away the illusions of safety that distract you from true mastery. For a Stoic, willingly embracing a death-ground situation would be an ultimate test of their resolve, forcing them to find inner strength when external comforts and options are removed. It's about accepting that the universe is indifferent to your comfort, and therefore, you must be indifferent to it as well, focusing only on your virtuous action. Beyond military and philosophical texts, this concept is woven into the fabric of countless historical triumphs. Explorers venturing into uncharted territories with limited supplies knew that turning back meant certain death. Revolutionaries committing to overthrowing tyrannical regimes knew failure meant execution. Artists creating groundbreaking works often risked destitution and public ridicule, with no safety net of a traditional career. In each case, the absence of an easy retreat amplified their focus, their ingenuity, and their sheer will to survive and succeed. The power of burning bridges lies in its ability to strip away the illusion of choice and force you into a state of absolute commitment. It's a harsh truth. When retreat is an option, it is a temptation. When retreat is impossible, it is an irrelevant thought. History's most formidable individuals understood this. They didn't just stumble into death-ground situations. They created them deliberately. They knew that by severing the ties to their past comfort and security, they unleashed a primal, unstoppable force within themselves that made victory not just possible, but inevitable. Mindset of burning bridges. We've traced the historical and philosophical threads of this no-retreat mentality. Now, let's peel back another layer and understand its deep, almost primal connection to our fundamental human survival instincts. This isn't just about ancient battlefield tactics. It's about tapping into the raw, unyielding power that emerges when a living being is truly cornered. Consider a wild animal. When it senses danger, its first instinct is typically flight. It will run, hide, or evade. But what happens when that animal is trapped? When it finds itself against a wall with no escape route? Its entire physiology shifts. The flight response is overridden by a fierce, desperate fight response. Adrenaline surges, senses sharpen, and a creature that might otherwise seem timid becomes a formidable, unpredictable force, capable of astonishing feats of strength and cunning. It will fight with every ounce of its being, not for victory, but for sheer survival. Humans are no different. Despite our advanced frontal lobes and complex societies, those ancient, hardwired survival instincts remain. In comfortable, low-stakes environments, we tend towards conservation of energy, minimal risk, and seeking the path of least resistance. We leave ourselves escape routes because our primitive brain, designed for survival, sees them as intelligent contingency plans. But what happens when you deliberately remove those escape routes? When you metaphorically put yourself in a corner with no way out? You tap into that same primal fight-or-flight mechanism, but crucially, you eliminate the flight option. When retreat is impossible, your brain, in its desperate effort to ensure your survival, or the survival of your ambition, your dream, your mission, shifts into an unparalleled mode of problem-solving and action. This is where the concept of perceived threat becomes incredibly powerful. Our brains don't always distinguish perfectly between a physical threat and a profound, existential threat to our goals or well-being. When you burn the bridges, you create an acute perceived threat. The threat isn't physical harm, but the catastrophic failure of your ambition, the loss of everything you've committed. This triggers the same cascade of physiological and psychological responses that a cornered animal experiences. Hyperfocus, distractions melt away. The trivial worries and peripheral tasks that usually clutter your mind suddenly become irrelevant. Your attention narrows to the immediate problem, how to survive and succeed on this one non-negotiable path. Resource mobilization. Your brain and body prepare for an all-out effort. Energy reserves are tapped. Creativity, often dormant in comfortable settings, sparks to life as you frantically search for novel solutions. You become incredibly resourceful because you have to be. Increased tolerance for pain and discomfort. When survival is on the line, the small inconveniences, the grind, the inevitable failures along the way are recontextualized. They become minor irritants compared to the existential threat of going backward. You push through exhaustion, rejection, and setbacks with a tenacity you didn't know you possessed. Elimination of doubt. Doubt thrives in the space between choices. When there's only one choice, the mental energy previously consumed by indecision is freed up and channeled into action. The question shifts from "should I do this?" to "how do I do this?" This isn't about reckless self-destruction. It's about conscious, strategic self-cornering. It's about understanding that true safety isn't found in a multitude of escape routes, but in the unwavering commitment to a single path forward. By aligning yourself with this ancient survival instinct, you transform potential failure into an absolute, non-negotiable imperative to succeed. When you burn the bridges, you don't just cut off retreat. You unleash a primal, unstoppable force from within that will find a way to win. Counterarguments. The most prominent and perhaps the most tempting to believe is the accusation, "Isn't this just reckless, irresponsible, foolish?" Let's address this head-on. The fear of being reckless is a powerful deterrent, often masquerading as prudence. It whispers that careful planning, hedging your bets, and maintaining multiple options is the only sane way to navigate a complex world. This perspective argues that burning bridges is akin to jumping off a cliff without a parachute. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of the strategy and its purpose. To refute this, we must first define reckless. Recklessness implies acting without thought, without a plan, and without understanding the consequences. It's impulsivity born of ignorance. The burn the bridges philosophy is the exact opposite. It is a deliberate, calculated, and highly strategic choice to eliminate options, precisely because you understand the profound psychological and practical consequences of doing so. Consider the example of a master chess player. They don't make moves at random. They calculate multiple steps ahead, anticipate their opponent's responses, and sometimes they make a sacrifice. They might sacrifice a pawn or even a knight not out of recklessness but as a calculated move to gain a decisive advantage. The piece is burned, removed from the board, but it serves a higher strategic purpose. This isn't recklessness, it's high-level strategy. Similarly, an entrepreneur taking their entire life savings to fund a new venture isn't being reckless if they've meticulously researched their market, validated their product, and built a solid business plan. Their reckless act of committing all their capital is a strategic decision to remove the comfort of a fallback, thereby forcing themselves to work with unparalleled intensity and ingenuity. They understand that a divided focus, constantly worrying about the safety of their savings, would be a far greater impediment to success than the inherent risk of the venture itself. The so-called reckless act often stems from a deeper understanding of human nature. It understands the corrosive power of indecision. As we discussed, an abundance of options leads to decision fatigue and paralysis. True recklessness isn't committing fully to one path. It's wasting years bouncing between half-hearted attempts, never truly committing to anything. The burn the bridges approach forces clarity and cuts through this debilitating indecision. It values focused intensity over diluted effort. A little bit of effort in many directions yields little to no results. A concentrated, all-consuming effort in one direction, however risky, has a far greater chance of breaking through. The reckless act ensures that every ounce of energy, every creative spark, every problem-solving capacity is directed towards a single, burning objective. It exposes the illusion of safety. Many safe paths are merely slow deaths. Staying in a soul-crushing job, maintaining a mediocre relationship, or indefinitely postponing a dream might feel safe in the short term, but they lead to regret, stagnation, and a life unfulfilled. The burn the bridges approach acknowledges that true safety comes from decisive action and the relentless pursuit of your deepest desires, not from clinging to unfulfilling compromises. The real recklessness lies in squandering your potential for the illusion of security. Consider Florence Nightingale. She defied her wealthy family's expectations, rejecting a life of leisure to pursue nursing, a profession then considered undignified. She poured her entire being into reforming military hospitals, often in horrific conditions, knowing full well she had alienated her family and societal norms. She burned her bridges to a comfortable, conventional life. Was that reckless? Or was it the singular, committed act of a visionary who revolutionized modern healthcare? The distinction lies in intent and preparation. Burning bridges is not about blindly leaping. It's about making a deliberate, informed choice to remove the possibility of retreat after you have identified your burning desire and committed to its pursuit. It's an advanced strategy for those who understand that the greatest risk isn't failure, but never truly trying. It's a calculated decision to harness desperation as fuel, to unleash untapped potential, and to force yourself into a state of unwavering commitment where success becomes the only viable option. It isn't reckless. It's a brutal, honest assessment of what it truly takes to achieve extraordinary triumph. A lesson to consider. We've dissected the historical pedigree of the no-retreat strategy, understanding how figures from Sun Tzu to the Stoics recognized its brutal effectiveness. We've also confronted the misguided notion of recklessness, clarifying that this isn't about blind leaps, but about calculated, strategic commitment. Now, let's distill this into the core lesson that underpins this entire philosophy. Lesson: burning bridges isn't reckless. It's a deliberate choice to harness desperation as fuel. Think about that word, desperation. Most people recoil from it. They see it as a sign of weakness, a last resort for those who have failed to plan. But in the context of burning bridges, desperation is transmuted. It becomes a catalyst, an alchemical ingredient that transforms potential into kinetic action, hesitation into relentless pursuit. When you deliberately eliminate your escape routes, you are creating a controlled environment of desperation. You are forcing yourself into a state where the only option is to succeed. This isn't a passive state. It's an active, internal shift where comfort gives way to a fierce, almost primal drive. Consider the entrepreneur who drains their savings, leaves their stable job, and moves into a small, rented office to launch their dream. Is it comfortable? No. Are they desperate? In a very real sense, yes. The rent is due, bills are piling up, and there's no steady paycheck to fall back on. But this isn't a debilitating desperation. This is a focused, channeled desperation. It forces them to make every phone call count, to relentlessly refine their product, to work with an intensity that someone with a secure backup plan simply cannot match. That desperation becomes the engine that pushes them through rejection, through exhaustion, and through the countless obstacles that would otherwise cause a less committed individual to give up. It's the artist who has nothing but their art. No trust fund, no spouse with a steady income, just their talent and a burning need to create. Every brushstroke, every note, every word written is imbued with a raw urgency because their very livelihood, their existence, depends on it. Their desperation for expression, and for survival through that expression, fuels a level of dedication that a part-time hobbyist can barely fathom. This harness of desperation works because it triggers deep-seated psychological mechanisms. When you are truly cornered, your brain stops debating. It stops seeking alternatives. All the mental energy previously wasted on what-ifs and plan BS is now focused on finding the way forward. You become incredibly resourceful because you must. You become innovative out of necessity. You gain clarity because the non-essentials have been stripped away, leaving only the imperative to achieve your goal. So when you consider burning your bridges, understand this. You are not being careless. You are engaging in a powerful act of self-mastery. You are intentionally placing yourself in a situation where failure is not an option, where mediocrity is unacceptable. You are choosing to transform the paralyzing fear of failure into the potent fuel for relentless action. You are making a conscious decision to leverage the immense power of being truly cornered, not to collapse, but to fight your way to triumph. Chapter 3: Your Burning Desire. We've talked about the courage it takes to commit, the psychological might of eliminating retreat, and how burning bridges isn't recklessness, but a deliberate act to harness desperation. But all this raw power, means nothing if you don't know what you're fighting for. What is that singular, undeniable goal that you would risk everything for. What is your burning desire? Most people float through life with vague aspirations. They want to be successful, happy, or comfortable. These aren't desires, they're pleasant fantasies. A burning desire is something far more potent. It's an unshakable compulsion, a deep-seated longing that gnaws at you, pulls at you, and won't let you rest until it's realized. It's the reason you'd willingly incinerate your escape routes, knowing there's no turning back. Clarifying this desire is the foundational step. Without it, you're just a ship adrift without a rudder, aimlessly waiting for a current to take you somewhere. You might stumble into something decent, but you'll never reach the shores of true triumph. So, how do you uncover this burning desire? It's not about brainstorming a list of possibilities. It's about excavation. It's about looking deep within and honestly answering some uncomfortable questions. What consumes your thoughts when you're alone? Not the fleeting worries of the day, but the recurring visions, the ideas that keep resurfacing, demanding your attention. What problem do you obsess over solving? What creation do you dream of bringing into existence? What makes you feel truly alive, even when it's difficult? Many people chase easy comfort, but often our deepest desires lie in areas that challenge us, that demand sacrifice. What kind of struggle are you willing to embrace wholeheartedly? For some, it's the grueling discipline of athletic mastery. For others, it's the solitary confinement of artistic creation. What injustice, problem, or unmet need in the world genuinely infuriates you enough to act? Often, our burning desires are tied to a cause larger than ourselves. Is there something fundamentally wrong that you feel compelled to fix, no matter the personal cost? If money, time, and external judgment were completely irrelevant, what would you spend every waking hour pursuing? Strip away the fear of failure and the pressure to conform. What remains? That raw, unadulterated yearning is a strong indicator of your true desire. What would you regret not doing on your deathbed? This is the ultimate clarity test. When all the noise of life fades, what unfinished symphony, unbuilt empire, or unsaid truth would haunt you? That is your burning desire calling. Your burning desire won't be something you merely like to do. It won't be a hobby you casually pursue. It will be something you feel compelled to do. It will often feel intimidating, even impossible, because true burning desires are rarely small or easily attainable. They demand an extraordinary effort, an all-consuming commitment. Once you start to feel that magnetic pull, that undeniable sense of purpose, you're getting close. It will likely feel exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. That combination of fear and undeniable attraction is a sign you've hit on something real. This isn't just a goal, it's a profound connection to your deepest self, a purpose that resonates with your core being. Take the time and be brutally honest with yourself. This isn't a casual exercise. This is the compass that will guide you when the winds shift, when the seas turn rough, and when you finally decide to set fire to the ground behind you. Without a clear and intensely felt burning desire, the courage to burn the bridges will dissipate, and you'll find yourself back where you started, comfortable, but ultimately unfulfilled. Difference between fleeting wants and true burning desires. You've started to glimpse that deep, unsettling truth about what you truly want, what makes your pulse quicken and your mind race even in the quietest moments. But here's where many falter, confusing a fleeting want with a true burning desire. The world is full of bright, shiny objects, temporary fascinations that promise quick satisfaction but deliver only distraction. Differentiating between the two is crucial, because you can only burn bridges for a desire that truly burns within you. A fleeting want is often socially influenced. It's what your friends are doing, what influencers flaunt, or what society tells you should make you happy. You want the big house because everyone else does, not because it truly aligns with your core values. Easy to abandon. The moment resistance appears, the moment it requires real effort or sacrifice, a fleeting want withers. The gym membership that goes unused, the business idea that never gets past the planning stage, the hobby picked up and dropped within weeks. Focused on external validation. You want the applause, the recognition, the appearance of success. The pursuit itself isn't enough. The outcome must impress others. Lacking a deep emotional core. It doesn't resonate with your values, your strengths, or your sense of purpose. It feels more like a superficial craving than a profound calling. A true burning desire, on the other hand, is distinctly different. It is internally driven. It comes from a deep, authentic place within you. It's what you genuinely yearn for, even if it's unpopular, misunderstood, or seems insane to others. It's the whisper of your soul, not the shout of external expectations. Resilient in the face of adversity. When obstacles mount, when rejection hits, when the path becomes excruciatingly difficult, a true burning desire doesn't fade. Instead, it intensifies. It's the force that compels you to push harder, to innovate, to endure, because the alternative of abandoning it feels like a betrayal of yourself. Its own reward. While external success might follow, the pursuit itself is deeply fulfilling. The process, the struggle, the incremental progress, these are sources of profound satisfaction, independent of accolades or monetary gain. You do it even if no one was watching. Connected to a larger purpose or identity. A true burning desire often feels like an extension of who you are, or who you are destined to become. It's tied to your values, your unique talents, or a deep sense of meaning that transcends mere acquisition or comfort. Consider the aspiring musician. A fleeting want might be the desire for fame and fortune, chasing trends and performing only when convenient. The moment the gigs are scarce or the criticism bites, they quit. A true burning desire, however, is the compulsive need to create music, to express themselves through sound, to connect with an audience, regardless of fame or financial reward. They will play in empty rooms, busk on street corners, and write songs through heartbreak, because the act of making music is as essential to them as breathing. They cannot not do it. To truly differentiate, engage in a brutal self-interrogation. When you think of this desire, does it fill you with an unshakable resolve, even when imagining the sacrifices it will demand? Does the thought of not pursuing it create a profound sense of regret or emptiness? Is the internal fire strong enough to incinerate every comfortable escape route? If your desire can be easily substituted, if you can imagine yourself just as content pursuing something entirely different when the going gets tough, then it's likely a fleeting want. But if it feels like an undeniable part of your destiny, something you must do to feel complete, then you've found your burning desire. This is the compass. This is the fuel. This is what you will willingly risk everything for, because the cost of not pursuing it is far greater than any potential failure. The all-or-nothing commitment framework. You've done the hard work of unearthing your true burning desire, differentiating it from the superficial wants that clutter most lives. Now comes the critical step, committing to it with an all-or-nothing ferocity. This isn't a passive agreement. It's an active, relentless process of dedication. You need a framework to turn that profound realization into irreversible action, a blueprint for burning the bridges in your own life. This framework is about creating an environment where retreat isn't just difficult, but genuinely impossible. It leverages the psychological principles we've discussed to force your hand and unleash your full potential. Public declaration and irreversible action. This is often the first and most powerful bridge to burn. Tell everyone. Tell your family, your friends, your colleagues, even strangers if it pushes you. State your burning desire clearly and declare your commitment to pursuing it without a safety net. This creates powerful social pressure. People will now hold you accountable, making it far more painful to backtrack. Example: if your desire is to start a business, formally quit your job before your new venture is fully funded. Announce your departure date. Send that resignation letter. If your desire is to write a novel, publicly declare a completion deadline to your network, or even sign up for a writing retreat you can't cancel. This public, irreversible action makes retreat a humiliating impossibility. Eliminate the Plan B crutch. Identify every single fallback option that allows you to avoid full commitment. This is where most people get stuck. Do you have savings you could rely on for years without working? Do you have a family member you could move back in with at any time? Is there a safe, career path you could easily pivot back to? These are your comfort blankets and they must go. Action. If you have substantial savings that diminish your urgency, consider investing a significant portion directly into your burning desire, e.g., equipment, specialized training, early business expenses, or commit to a timeline where those savings will be depleted, forcing you to generate income from your new path. If your desire involves moving, sell your current home or break your lease with no immediate plan B for housing other than making your new venture work. Cut off the crutches. Sever ties with distractions and energy sinks. Many so-called options are simply distractions that drain your time and mental energy, preventing you from focusing on your true desire. These can be toxic relationships, time-wasting hobbies, excessive social media, or even other promising but ultimately secondary projects. They are alternative paths that keep you from dedicating your full self. Action. Conduct a brutal audit of how you spend your time, energy, and mental focus. Actively and consciously cut out activities, relationships, or commitments that do not directly serve your burning desire. If a hobby saps hours from your creative work, temporarily abandon it. If a social circle encourages complacency, distance yourself. Your burning desire demands absolute devotion. Embrace the death ground environment. Consciously place yourself in situations where success is the only way out. This could be financial, reputational, or even spiritual. When the pain of not achieving your goal outweighs the pain of the struggle, you unleash unstoppable force. Example: sign a lease on a new office space for your business, creating a fixed overhead you must meet. Enroll in a demanding, non-refundable program that forces you to acquire the skills you need. Move to a new city where you know no one, forcing you to build your life from the ground up around your ambition. This creates a powerful, self-imposed pressure cooker. Cultivate a no-going-back mindset daily. This isn't a one-time act, it's a continuous reinforcement. Remind yourself constantly that retreat is not an option. Visualize the bridge burning behind you. Replay the choice you've made to commit fully. This internal dialogue reinforces the external actions you've taken. Action. Start each day by reaffirming your burning desire and your commitment to it. Write it down. Speak it aloud. When doubt creeps in, consciously remind yourself of the bridges you've burned and the absolute necessity of moving forward. This framework is not for the faint of heart. It demands courage, a willingness to be uncomfortable, and an unwavering belief in your burning desire. But remember, the greatest triumphs in history were not achieved by those who kept their options open. They were forged by individuals who, with a clear purpose and an unshakable resolve, deliberately set fire to their escape routes, leaving themselves no choice but to conquer. Your bridge is waiting for the flame. A lesson to consider. Now, let's solidify the most critical lesson of this chapter, a truth that serves as the bedrock for every subsequent act of courage. Lesson: a burning desire is your compass. Without it, you'll never have the courage to burn the bridges. Think of any great explorer, navigator, or pioneer in history. They didn't set sail into the unknown or trek across vast, treacherous lands simply because they were bored or wanted a change of scenery. They had a destination, a profound objective that pulled them forward: new trade routes, uncharted continents, scientific discovery. That objective, that burning desire, was their compass. It guided every decision, every arduous step, every risk taken. Without that fixed point, they would have been lost at sea, or abandoned their journey at the first sign of hardship. The act of burning bridges, of eliminating your escape routes, is terrifying. It demands an extraordinary level of courage. And courage of this magnitude doesn't materialize out of thin air. It isn't summoned by mere willpower or a casual interest. It is fueled by something far deeper, far more compelling, an unyielding, visceral need to achieve a specific outcome, to reach a defined destination. If your desire is vague, if it's merely a preference, or if you could easily settle for an alternative, then the courage required to cut off your escape routes simply won't be there. Why would you sacrifice your comfort, your security, your perceived safety, for something you're only lukewarm about? You wouldn't. Your mind, ever the protector of your comfort zone, would find 1,000 rationalizations for keeping your options open. For holding onto that plan B, the internal resistance would be too great. But when your desire truly burns within you, when it's as essential as the air you breathe, the equation changes. The thought of not pursuing it becomes more painful, more terrifying than the prospect of the struggle ahead. That yearning creates an immense internal pressure, an irresistible force that overrides the natural human inclination towards safety and comfort. It's this profound internal compulsion that provides the courage needed to face the abyss. Your burning desire provides clarity in chaos. When the path becomes unclear, when doubt creeps in, or when unforeseen obstacles arise, your compass points you back to your true north. It reminds you why you torched your retreat options in the first place. It provides the unwavering focus necessary to push through exhaustion, to innovate under pressure, and to transform setbacks into stepping stones. Without that compass, burning your bridges would indeed be reckless. It would be an act of self-destruction, an aimless leap into the void. But with a burning desire as your guiding star, it transforms into an act of profound liberation, a strategic maneuver that clears the path for your inevitable triumph. Find that compass. Let it guide you. And then, and only then, will you possess the unshakable courage to set fire to every bridge that stands between you and your destiny. Part 2. Legends of the All-or-Nothing Path. Each of the following 10 chapters profiles a historical or contemporary figure who embodied the no-retreat mentality. Chapter 4. Hernán Cortés, the Ships Ablaze. In the year 1519, a small fleet of 11 ships carrying around 600 men, a handful of cannons, and 16 horses sailed toward the coast of what is now Mexico. Their leader is Hernán Cortés, a man driven by an insatiable hunger for glory, gold, and power. He is sailing into the unknown, toward a civilization rumored to be rich beyond measure, but also vast and formidable, the Aztec Empire. This is not a mission sanctioned by the Spanish crown in any meaningful way. It is a brazen gamble, an act of supreme ambition on the edge of the world. Cortés lands his men near what is now Veracruz. The air is thick with humidity and the scent of unfamiliar flora. Almost immediately, the harsh reality of their situation sets in. The land is alien, the climate unforgiving, and the indigenous populations they encounter are either hostile or wary. They are a minuscule force, a speck on the vast canvas of a new continent, facing an empire that commands hundreds of thousands of warriors and controls a territory larger than Spain itself. Doubt begins to fester among his ranks. Murmurs of mutiny ripple through the weary soldiers. They whisper of turning back, of retreating to the perceived safety of Cuba, where they had initially set out from. This is the moment. This is the crucible where true leadership is forged, and where the burn the bridges mentality is etched into history with fire and steel. Cortés understands deeply that his men, despite their training and their greed, are still human. They are susceptible to fear, to the seductive pull of a fallback plan. As long as those ships bobbed invitingly in the harbor, as long as the option of retreat remained visible, a significant portion of his army would be mentally, if not physically, divided. Their commitment to the monumental task ahead would remain lukewarm, always ready to pivot to safety when the going got truly tough. Cortés gathers his men. The air is thick with tension. He doesn't just give a rousing speech. He delivers a cold, brutal, and utterly irreversible command. He orders his ships to be scuttled. Not merely hidden, not just anchored far away, but dismantled, stripped of anything useful and then sunk. Some accounts say they were burned, turning the very vessels of their escape into ash on the horizon. The effect is immediate and absolute. The men watch as their only path back to the familiar world disappears beneath the waves. Imagine the shock, the terror, the sudden bone-deep realization that washes over them. There is no retreat. There is no plan B. The choice is stark, horrifyingly clear: conquer or die, success or annihilation. There is literally nowhere else to go. Their backs are against the wall, and the wall is the entirety of an unknown, hostile continent. This act of burning the ships was not an act of recklessness. It was a calculated masterstroke of psychological warfare, aimed not at his enemies, but at his own men. Cortés understood that human beings, when truly cornered, unleash an extraordinary, almost supernatural level of tenacity and ingenuity. The perceived threat, the absolute certainty of no escape, triggered the deepest survival instincts within each man. The implications of this single act were immediate and profound. Unifying focus, all internal debates about retreat vanished. The scattered energies of their minds, previously weighing options, now converged on a single, vital objective: advancing and overcoming. There was no longer the luxury of indecision. Unleashed resourcefulness. With no external source of escape, the men were forced to look inward and to their immediate surroundings for solutions. Every problem, every obstacle, now demanded a solution. Their creativity and adaptability sharpened under the immense pressure. Intensified commitment. The commitment to the mission became absolute. There was no option for half-hearted effort. Every step, every fight, every negotiation had to be approached with maximum intensity, because failure meant their very demise. Psychological advantage. This resolute, no-retreat posture subtly permeated their interactions with the indigenous tribes. The sheer audacity of a small force, so utterly committed, projected an aura of invincible determination. This psychological edge, perhaps more than their superior weaponry, played a critical role in their eventual conquest. Cortés himself was an embodiment of this mindset. He had risked everything to fund this expedition, even defying the governor of Cuba. His personal bridges were already aflame long before his ships touched Mexican soil. He knew that for his grand ambition to succeed, he needed his men to share that same desperate, singular focus. By literally eliminating their options, he forced them into the same all-or-nothing mindset that drove him. The journey that followed was brutal. They faced vast armies, unfamiliar terrain, disease, and internal strife. But time and again, when faced with overwhelming odds, the death-ground mentality instilled by Cortés propelled them forward. They fought with a ferocity born of necessity. They formed strategic alliances out of desperation. They endured hardships that would have broken a less committed force. The conquest of the Aztec Empire, though steeped in controversy and tragedy, stands as one of history's most striking examples of how total commitment, forced by the elimination of retreat, can lead to improbable triumph. Lesson: destroy your escape routes to unleash your full potential. When retreat isn't an option, you find a way to win. Cortés's brutal act serves as a stark, undeniable truth. As long as a comfortable fallback exists, you will unconsciously hold something back. You will conserve energy. You will hesitate at the brink of true commitment. But when the bridge behind you is consumed by flames, when the very ground you stand on demands forward movement, every fiber of your being aligns with survival and success. Application: identify one ship, e.g., a fallback job, toxic relationship, you can burn to commit to your goal. This isn't about physical ships for most of us, but the principle is identical. What are your personal ships that offer a comfortable, yet ultimately distracting, escape from the full commitment your burning desire demands? Is it a fallback job that siphons your time and creative energy, allowing you to procrastinate on your true calling as an entrepreneur or artist? Could you give a firm resignation date, knowing you must make your passion project generate income? Is it a toxic relationship or a draining social circle that provides comfort but stifles your growth and ambition, always pulling you back into complacency? Could you sever those ties, creating space for the focused effort your desire demands? Is it excessive savings that allow you to indefinitely defer the hard work of building something new, creating a false sense of security that breeds inaction? Could you invest a significant portion into your venture, making it a non-negotiable success imperative? Is it a comfort zone location that keeps you from moving to where your industry thrives or where the opportunities for your passion truly lie? Could you commit to a relocation, selling your property, making the move irreversible? The ship you burn will be unique to you, but the purpose is universal. To eliminate the option of retreat, to cut off the soft, seductive whisper of Plan B, this act will be terrifying. It will trigger deep-seated anxieties. But in that terror, you will find an unprecedented clarity and a ferocious drive. When there is no way back, the only way is forward, and that forward path, though fraught with challenges, is where your greatest triumphs await. Chapter 5. Harriet Tubman, Freedom or Death. The year is 1849. The place, Dorchester County, Maryland, a landscape carved by fields of tobacco and corn, but also by the invisible lines of brutal human bondage. Araminta Ross, a young woman in her late 20s known to history as Harriet Tubman, labors under the whip and the constant threat of sale, separation, and unimaginable cruelty. Slavery, for her and millions like her, is not an abstract concept. It is a suffocating, soul-crushing reality. Every day is a test of endurance, a constant reminder of stolen dignity. But within Araminta, a fire burns. It is a desire not for comfort, not for wealth, but for something far more fundamental: freedom. This wasn't a fleeting want. It was an absolute, non-negotiable imperative born of unspeakable suffering and an unyielding spirit. Her mind was etched with the words of her vision, a recurring dream of flying over fields and rivers, guided by an invisible hand, toward a promised land. This vision was her compass. She knows the risks. Escape attempts are met with brutal punishment, often death. The bounty on runaways is high, and the woods and swamps are unforgiving. Yet, for Harriet, the prospect of remaining enslaved was a fate worse than death. The bridge behind her, the life of perpetual servitude, was already a living hell. She didn't need to burn it. It was already ablaze with the inferno of injustice. Her choice was not between good and bad options, but between two terrifying paths: a guaranteed living death or a desperate gamble for true life. In 1849, driven by rumors of impending sale that would separate her from her family forever, Harriet made her move. She slipped away under the cloak of night, leaving behind everything she knew. She traveled alone, guided by the North Star, relying on intuition, courage, and the kindness of strangers on the burgeoning network of safe houses and routes known as the Underground Railroad. Each step was a step into the unknown, a step away from the chains that bound her. There was no going back. If caught, the consequences were unthinkable. But for Harriet, this was not reckless abandon. It was the ultimate act of self-preservation, a desperate surge of life force against overwhelming oppression. Her personal freedom secured in the free states of the North, Harriet Tubman could have stopped there. She had achieved her burning desire. She had reached her promised land. But her story and her legend truly begin after her own escape. She carried within her the searing memory of her family, her friends, her people still trapped in bondage. Her freedom felt incomplete without theirs. This was a cause bigger than herself, a force that demanded she return to the fire again and again. Over the next decade, between 1849 and 1860, Harriet Tubman became the Moses of her people. She made approximately 13 return trips into the heart of slave territory, risking her life with every journey. She guided over 70 enslaved people, including her parents and siblings, to freedom. She operated under a simple, brutal principle: I never ran my train off the track and I never lost a passenger. But her methods were equally uncompromising. She carried a pistol, not just for defense against slave catchers but for a darker purpose, to ensure absolute commitment from her passengers. If someone grew faint-hearted on the journey, if they threatened to turn back and betray the group, she would aim her pistol and famously declare, "You go on or die." This was not cruelty. It was the ultimate act of burning the bridges for those she led. She understood that a single defector could compromise the entire operation, endangering dozens of others waiting in the shadows. For those under her charge, as for herself, the choice was freedom or death. There was no middle ground, no retreat to partial servitude. Harriet's genius lay in her complete absorption of the no-retreat philosophy. She became a master of operating on death ground. Absolute focus. Her mind was singularly dedicated to the mission. Every sound, every shadow, every interaction was filtered through the lens of escape and evasion. Unparalleled resourcefulness. She learned to navigate by the stars, to read the natural world, to blend into the landscape. She relied on her profound faith, her cunning, and her network of abolitionists in safe houses. When a direct path was blocked, she found another. Unshakable belief in purpose. Her divine visions, her deep Christian faith, and her personal experience of slavery provided an unyielding conviction. She believed herself to be an instrument of God, and this belief drowned out doubt and fear. For her, abandoning the mission was simply not an option. The risks she faced were immense. Bounties on her head soared, reaching what would be the equivalent of millions of dollars today. She became known as Moses, a ghost-like figure who appeared out of the darkness and vanished just as swiftly. She defied the most powerful economic and social institution of her time, not with armies, but with an iron will forged in the fires of personal experience and an absolute refusal to accept anything less than total freedom. She had no plan B. Her only path was the one leading north, toward liberation for herself and for every soul she could touch. Lesson: courage comes from a cause bigger than yourself. When the stakes are life or death, you act without hesitation. Harriet Tubman's story is a profound illustration that the deepest, most unshakable courage emerges not when the pursuit is merely self-serving, but when it is fueled by a cause that transcends your individual existence. For her, that cause was the liberation of an entire people. When you connect your burning desire to something larger than your own ego, something that truly matters beyond your personal gain, the stakes rise to an existential level. Retreat becomes an unthinkable betrayal, and hesitation a moral failing. In such moments, the fear of failure is dwarfed by the moral imperative to act, to push forward, to break chains. Application: connect your goal to a deeper purpose to fuel your resolve. Many people pursue goals that are ultimately shallow: a bigger bank account, a fancier car, more fleeting recognition. While these desires can provide some motivation, they rarely provide the kind of unyielding resolve needed to truly burn the bridges and endure the inevitable hardship. To truly harness the power of Harriet Tubman's legacy, ask yourself, who else benefits if I achieve this? Is your business idea just about making money, or does it genuinely solve a problem for a community, empower others, or create something truly valuable in the world? What enduring impact will my success have beyond myself? Will it inspire others? Will it change a system? Will it leave a legacy that outlives you? What injustice or problem does my goal address? Frame your ambition not just as a personal gain, but as a rectification, a contribution, a vital improvement to some aspect of the world. If I fail, what is the cost to others or to a greater principle? For Harriet, failure meant not just her own re-enslavement, but the continued bondage of those she sought to free. What non-negotiable principle or value are you fighting for? When your burning desire becomes inextricably linked to a cause greater than your own comfort or ego, when its failure would mean a setback for something you deeply believe in, then the stakes are no longer just personal. They become existential. Your resolve transforms from mere ambition into a moral imperative. This connection to a deeper purpose will inject your mission with an unstoppable force, granting you the courage to face any danger, to overcome any obstacle, and to relentlessly push forward, because for you, as for Harriet Tubman, there is no other option. Chapter 6. Elon Musk all in on Tesla and SpaceX. The global economy in the year 2008 is teetering on the brink of collapse. Banks are failing, markets are crashing, and fear has gripped the world. Most rational people are retreating, hunkering down, conserving what little they have. This is precisely the moment when Elon Musk, an entrepreneur already wealthy from the sale of PayPal, chose to go all in, betting every single cent he had, and then some, on two audacious, capital-intensive ventures that conventional wisdom deemed suicidal: Tesla, an electric car company, and SpaceX, a private rocket manufacturer aiming to colonize Mars. Musk wasn't merely investing. He wasn't taking a calculated risk with disposable income. He was making a deliberate, excruciating choice to burn every single bridge to personal financial security. His entire fortune, the culmination of years of relentless work and shrewd innovation, was thrown into the gaping maw of these two nascent companies. There was no comfortable fallback, no hidden cache of wealth. If Tesla and SpaceX failed, Elon Musk would be financially ruined, personally bankrupt, and publicly humiliated. He would lose everything. Tesla at this point was bleeding money. Its first car, the Roadster, was plagued with production delays and cost overruns. Skepticism from the established automotive industry was rampant. Electric cars were still largely seen as glorified golf carts, a niche curiosity rather than a viable future. SpaceX, meanwhile, had faced 3 consecutive catastrophic launch failures of its Falcon 1 rocket. 3 times his dreams had exploded into fireballs, consuming millions of dollars and precious time. The 4th launch, scheduled for September 2008, was the absolute last chance. If it failed, SpaceX was dead. And if SpaceX died, Tesla likely wouldn't be far behind, taking Musk's entire fortune with it. The pressure on Musk was unimaginable. He was divorcing, grappling with the demands of a young family, and witnessing his personal wealth dwindle with terrifying speed. He lived off bridge loans from friends. He faced a choice: pull back, conserve some capital, live comfortably off what remained, and write off the ventures as noble failures. This was the rational, prudent path. This was Plan B. But Elon Musk isn't wired for Plan B. He had a burning desire that transcended mere financial gain. For him, Tesla wasn't just about cars. It was about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. SpaceX wasn't just about rockets. It was about making humanity a multiplanetary species, a desperate attempt to safeguard the long-term survival of consciousness. These were not fleeting wants. These were existential imperatives that gripped his soul with an unyielding force. His commitment was absolute. He funneled every dollar he had, even borrowing money to keep the companies afloat. He wasn't just an investor. He was the primary financier, pushing his teams to the brink, sleeping at the factory, making impossible demands because for him, failure meant not just financial ruin, but the death of humanity's future. Then came September 28, 2008. The Falcon 1 rocket carrying a dummy payload stood on the launch pad. The world was watching, mostly with schadenfreude or cynical detachment. The previous failures had solidified the perception that private spaceflight was a fool's errand. When the countdown reached 0 and the rocket lifted off, Musk, his family, and his exhausted teams watched with bated breath. This was it. The 4th flight. The last dollar. Against all odds, against the weight of 3 prior failures and a collapsing global economy, the Falcon 1 reached orbit. It was a shoestring operations triumph, a single candle lit against the encroaching darkness. This success, though barely, unlocked a crucial NASA contract that kept SpaceX alive. But the battle wasn't over for Tesla. The company was still teetering on the edge of bankruptcy in late 2008. Musk was forced to choose: allocate the remaining scraps of his fortune to one company, saving it while letting the other die, or continue to pour everything into both, risking total annihilation. With a resolve that defied logic, he split the remaining funds between them. It was the ultimate burn the bridges move. Not just one bridge, but all of them, for two different, equally demanding ventures. On Christmas Eve, 2008, a phone call came through. It was from the U.S. Department of Energy, offering Tesla a $465 million loan, a lifeline. Just hours later, a second call confirmed a vital investment round for SpaceX. Both companies survived, clinging to life by the barest thread. It was a miracle born from an absolute, unwavering commitment. Musk's story is a masterclass in the power of burning bridges. He didn't just invest money. He invested his entire identity, his reputation, his sanity. Forced innovation. With no financial cushion, every decision at Tesla and SpaceX had to be lean, efficient, and innovative. There was no room for waste or complacency. Unparalleled drive. Knowing that bankruptcy was the only alternative to success, Musk drove himself and his teams with a ferocity that few leaders possess. Sleep was a luxury. Work was everything. Clarity of purpose. The existential stakes stripped away all distractions. Every action, every hire, every engineering decision was evaluated against the singular goal of survival and, ultimately, the realization of his grand visions. Credibility born of commitment. While many viewed him as reckless, others saw a man who literally put his money where his mouth was. This all-in commitment eventually garnered him immense credibility, attracting top talent and investors who recognized the profound dedication. Lesson: betting everything on your vision forces you to innovate and persevere. Most people operate with a significant portion of their potential locked away behind the security of their plan B. They have an escape route, and that very escape route dilutes their effort, blunts their creativity, and undermines their perseverance. Elon Musk's journey vividly illustrates that when your entire existence is predicated on the success of your vision, you unlock levels of ingenuity and tenacity that remain dormant in comfortable circumstances. The threat of total loss becomes a powerful catalyst for unprecedented gains. You simply must find a way, and in that necessity, you discover remarkable capabilities. Application: take a calculated risk that scares you, put something significant on the line to sharpen your focus. This isn't about throwing your life away haphazardly. It's about choosing one significant chip from your pile and placing it squarely on your burning desire, making its loss genuinely painful if you fail. What could you put on the line that would truly sharpen your focus and eliminate the mental comfort of retreat? Financial commitment. Not just a small investment, but a substantial portion of your savings, invested directly into your venture or skill development. This isn't frivolous spending. It's a strategic allocation that raises the stakes dramatically. Time obligation. Commit to an intense, non-negotiable period of dedicated work. Sign up for a challenging course, a residency, or a project with an immovable deadline that demands your full, undivided attention and leaves no room for other commitments. Reputational stake. Publicly declare your ambitious goal to a wide audience. Launch a crowdfunding campaign where success depends on public trust. This creates external accountability that makes retreat deeply embarrassing and motivating. Geographic relocation. Move to a new city or country where your industry thrives, selling your current home or breaking your lease, thereby committing fully to a new environment without the easy option of returning to your old life. The key is that the risk must genuinely scare you. It should be significant enough that failure would cause real, undeniable pain or loss. It's in that discomfort, that self-imposed pressure, that you will find the clarity, the innovation, and the relentless perseverance that transforms a mere vision into a concrete, undeniable reality. What are you willing to put on the line? Chapter 7. Joan of Arc, the maid who defied an empire. The Kingdom of France in the early 15th century was a ravaged land, torn apart by the Hundred Years' War. The English, allied with the powerful Burgundians, occupied vast swathes of French territory. The French Dauphin, Charles VII, was a weak and indecisive figure, relegated to the castle of Chinon, his claim to the throne tenuous, his spirit broken. Morale among the French populace and soldiery was at rock bottom. The situation was desperate, seemingly hopeless. Into this maelstrom stepped a figure so improbable, so utterly out of place, that history still grapples with her reality: Joan of Arc. A teenage peasant girl from the village of Domremy, she possessed no military training, no political connections, no wealth, and no social standing. She had everything to lose and nothing by earthly measures to gain. Yet she was driven by a burning desire so absolute, a conviction so unshakable, that it allowed her to defy not just an empire, but the very fabric of societal norms and expectations. Joan's desire wasn't for personal glory or riches. It was rooted in what she claimed were divine visions and voices, those of Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret, urging her to fulfill a singular, monumental mission: to drive the English from France and to ensure the coronation of Charles VII as the rightful king at Reims, the traditional site for French coronations, then deep in enemy territory. This was her compass. This was the vision that drowned out all doubt, all fear, all logical counterarguments. For Joan, this wasn't a choice. It was a sacred, non-negotiable command from God himself. Her bridge to a normal, peasant life was already metaphorically burned by the weight of this divine imperative. There was no going back to tending sheep in Domremy, not when the salvation of France hung in the balance. Her journey to commitment was a series of confrontations, each one an act of defiance against the conventional wisdom of her time. First, she had to convince Robert de Baudricourt, the local garrison commander, to take her seriously. Imagine the scene: a teenage girl dressed in men's clothes, an act considered scandalous, claiming divine instruction to lead an army. Baudricourt initially scoffed, dismissed her, but Joan persisted, returning time and again, her conviction unwavering, her pronouncements surprisingly accurate, like her foretelling of a French defeat near Orleans. Her sheer, unyielding belief chipped away at his skepticism, until he finally granted her an escort to Chinon. Upon reaching Charles VII's court, the challenge intensified. The Dauphin and his advisors, a collection of cynical, battle-weary nobles and theologians, were hardly inclined to trust their fate to an illiterate peasant girl. Charles even attempted to trick her, hiding among his courtiers. But Joan, guided by her inner compass, immediately identified him. Her unwavering certainty, her directness, and her willingness to stake everything on her divine mission slowly began to chip away at their profound skepticism. She was subjected to intense interrogation by theologians, who sought to expose her as a fraud or a heretic. But Joan stood firm, her answers clear and resolute, never wavering from her claim of divine guidance. Against the overwhelming advice of most of his counselors, Charles, desperate for any glimmer of hope, finally agreed. He gave Joan an army and sent her to Orleans, a crucial city under siege by the English for months, its fall considered inevitable. Joan's arrival at Orleans in April 1429 was transformational. The French defenders were demoralized, their commanders cautious and divided. Joan, however, immediately seized the initiative. She sent defiant letters to the English commanders, demanding they lift the siege. She wasn't a tactician in the conventional sense, but she understood the power of courage, morale, and relentless forward momentum. She ignored the cautious strategies of the seasoned French generals, urging direct, audacious assaults on the English fortifications. She led from the front, carrying her banner, not a weapon. She was wounded by an arrow during one assault but famously returned to the fray, inspiring her troops to a final, decisive push. Within 9 days, the siege of Orleans, which had defied the French for months, was broken. The English, stunned by the ferocity and sudden turn of events, retreated. This victory was nothing short of miraculous, instantly elevating Joan to legendary status among the French. It broke the spell of English invincibility and injected a potent, almost forgotten, sense of hope and defiance into the French psyche. But Joan's mission wasn't complete. Her burning desire demanded Charles's coronation at Reims. The journey to Reims was through heavily contested English and Burgundian territory, a perilous undertaking that conventional military wisdom advised against. Again, Joan pushed for the direct, audacious path. Her conviction rallied towns along the way to declare for Charles, sometimes by force, sometimes by sheer moral persuasion. In July 1429, Charles VII was crowned King of France in Reims Cathedral, with Joan standing proudly by his side, her initial mission complete. Joan's power lay in her absolute, unwavering belief. She embodied the all-or-nothing mindset in its purest form. Singular focus. She had one mission dictated by her voices, and she pursued it with relentless, uncompromising clarity. There was no alternative career path, no comfortable retirement plan. Her life was the mission. Defiance of logic and fear. Every step she took was against overwhelming odds, against the skepticism of powerful men, and against the very real threat of capture, torture, and death. Yet, her belief in her purpose made these fears secondary. Irreversible commitment. By embracing her divine mission and acting on it, Joan burned all bridges to a conventional life. She knew, deep down, that retreat from her calling meant not just failure but spiritual damnation. This self-imposed psychological death ground propelled her forward, making retreat unthinkable. Inspirational power. Her unshakable conviction was contagious. It transformed demoralized soldiers into crusaders. It compelled a timid dauphin to take risks he otherwise never would have. People are drawn to absolute certainty, especially in times of despair. Joan of Arc's story ends in tragedy. Captured by the Burgundians in 1430, she was sold to the English, put on trial for heresy and witchcraft, and ultimately burned at the stake in 1431 at the age of 19. Yet, even in the face of a cruel and unjust death, she never truly wavered from her core conviction. Her legacy, far from being extinguished, burned brighter, becoming a symbol of national identity and unwavering courage. She defied an empire and, through her absolute commitment, changed the course of history. Lesson: unshakable belief in your purpose can overcome impossible odds. Joan of Arc's life is a testament to the fact that when your belief in your purpose is so absolute, so profoundly ingrained that it becomes indistinguishable from your very being, you gain an almost supernatural power to overcome. It's not about having military might or political cunning. It's about having a conviction so fierce that it makes surrender an impossibility. This unshakable belief fuels the courage needed to burn every bridge and face down any Goliath. Application: cultivate a vision so clear it drowns out doubt and fear. Your burning desire, once identified, must be nurtured and clarified into an unshakable vision. This vision is not a vague hope. It is a vivid, detailed mental blueprint of your desired future, seen through the lens of absolute certainty. Visualize with sensory detail. Don't just think about your goal. See it, feel it, hear it. What does success look like, sound like, feel like? If it's a thriving business, picture the office, hear the buzz of activity, feel the satisfaction of serving your customers. If it's a completed artistic work, imagine its texture, its impact on others, the feeling of completion. Reaffirm your why daily. Remind yourself constantly of the deep purpose behind your desire. Is it to solve a problem, to create beauty, to free others metaphorically or literally? Connect with the emotional core of your mission every single day. Eliminate dissenting voices, internal and external. Just as Joan ignored the skeptics at court, you must silence the internal doubts and the external negativity. Limit exposure to those who undermine your vision. Actively challenge your own limiting beliefs. Act as if it is already inevitable. When you truly believe, your actions reflect that belief. Joan went to war like a general, even though she was a peasant girl. Start making decisions and taking actions consistent with the person who has already achieved that burning desire. This process of cultivating an unshakable belief isn't wishful thinking. It's a psychological discipline that reinforces your commitment and empowers you to face the daunting process of burning your bridges. When your vision is as clear and bright as Joan's divine light, the shadows of doubt and fear simply cannot exist, and you will be propelled forward by an unstoppable force. Chapter 8. J.K. Rowling Writing Through Despair. The early 1990s found Joanne Rowling, a young woman in her late 20s, facing a personal landscape as bleak and unforgiving as any battlefield. She was a single mother living on state benefits in Edinburgh, Scotland, struggling to provide for her infant daughter. Her marriage had ended, she was unemployed, and depression, a heavy, suffocating cloak, had settled around her. By her own admission, she felt like the biggest failure I knew. This was her crucible. This was her death ground, a personal abyss where comfort, security, and even basic hope seemed to have vanished. Most people, faced with such overwhelming despair and deprivation, would focus solely on immediate survival. They would scramble for any job, however menial, to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. They would cling to any semblance of normalcy, any glimmer of safety. And in many ways, Rowling did. She lived a life of stark simplicity, counting pennies, pushing her daughter in a pram through the streets of Edinburgh. But unlike many, she also clung fiercely to something else, something intangible but utterly vital, a burning desire. This desire wasn't for wealth or fame, though those would eventually come. It was a compulsion, a vivid, relentless inner world demanding to be put onto paper. The idea for Harry Potter had struck her during a delayed train journey in 1990, and it had taken root, growing with an unstoppable force even as her external life crumbled. This wasn't a hobby she could pick up and put down. This was a story, a universe, a set of characters that insisted on being written. This was her compass, guiding her through the profound darkness. For Rowling, the bridges to a comfortable, conventional life were not merely burned. They were obliterated by circumstance. She had no safety net, no plan B. Her social status was at rock bottom. Her financial situation was dire. She literally had nothing to lose. And it was precisely this state of utter destitution that became her greatest, albeit brutal, asset. Consider her commitment, forged in the fires of despair. Time and place as weapons. With a tiny baby, time was a precious commodity. She wrote whenever and wherever she could, in cafes, nursing her daughter, or at her small kitchen table after the baby was asleep. The noise and bustle of the cafes weren't distractions. They were a necessary backdrop, a way to escape the cold solitude of her unheated flat. Her commitment wasn't dependent on ideal conditions. It thrived in their absence. The power of singularity. When you have nothing, the choices are profoundly simplified. The myriad distractions and temptations that plague those with more options simply don't exist. There was no social calendar, no lavish spending, no complex career ladder to climb. There was only the imperative to survive and the burning need to write. Her focus was absolute, born of necessity. Embracing rejection as fuel. Even as she poured her soul onto the page, the external world offered little validation. She wrote for years with no guarantee of publication, facing the specter of rejection. When the manuscript was finally complete, it was rejected by 12 different publishers before a small publishing house, Bloomsbury, finally took a chance. For someone less utterly committed, These rejections would have been definitive proof of failure, a reason to abandon the dream. But for Rowling, with nothing left to lose, each rejection was simply another hurdle to overcome. Her desperation to see her story in print, to justify the immense sacrifices, pushed her onward. The unbearable cost of inaction. For most people, the fear of failure drives inaction. For Rowling, the fear of not writing, of leaving that vivid world trapped inside her head, of succumbing to despair without having given her burning desire every ounce of her being, was a far greater terror. The cost of inaction was a life of unfulfilled potential, a continued existence in the depths of depression without a beacon of hope. Rowling didn't choose to be poor or heartbroken, but she made a profound, deliberate choice within that despair. She chose to commit absolutely to her creative vision. She harnessed her desperation, not as a paralyzing force, but as an inexhaustible fuel. Every word she wrote was an act of defiance against her circumstances, a declaration that her internal world was richer, more vital than her impoverished external reality. The success of Harry Potter, when it finally arrived, was astronomical, defying all expectations. It was a phenomenon that captivated generations and built an empire. But that empire was built brick by agonizing brick, in unheated flats and crowded cafes, fueled by the raw, unyielding courage of a woman who had nowhere left to fall. Lesson: when you have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. Keep going. This is not a romanticization of poverty or hardship. It is a brutal truth. When your external life offers no comfort, no safety net, and no easy retreat, you are forced to rely entirely on your internal resources. The fear of failure diminishes because the perceived bottom has already been hit. In that moment of profound vulnerability and absence, you are liberated. You are free to commit with an intensity that those with more to protect can rarely muster. You gain the freedom to take immense risks, to pursue your truth with an unyielding tenacity, because the only way out is through. Application: dedicate time to your passion, even when the world doubts you. Many aspiring creators, entrepreneurs, or innovators are waiting for the perfect conditions: more time, more money, more validation. Rowling's story shatters this illusion. Her conditions were the antithesis of perfect, yet she produced one of the most successful literary series in history. To apply this lesson: protect your sacred time. Identify the hours, no matter how few, that you can dedicate to your burning desire. Treat this time as sacrosanct. This might mean waking up an hour earlier, staying up later, or sacrificing leisure activities. Make it non-negotiable. Write, build, create in imperfect conditions. Stop waiting for the ideal office, the perfect silence, or the complete funding. Work in a noisy cafe, on your kitchen table, in stolen moments. The act of creation itself, under duress, builds resilience. Ignore the external noise. The world will doubt you. Friends and family might question your sanity. The market might reject your early efforts. Like Rowling, you must cultivate an internal fortitude that allows you to tune out this noise and remain focused on your burning desire. Your belief in your vision must be louder than all the doubts. Find your why not. When you have nothing to lose, the answer to why not try becomes overwhelmingly powerful. If the worst-case scenario isn't much different from your current reality, then the upside of taking the plunge becomes infinitely more appealing. Lean into this liberation. Your current circumstances, no matter how challenging, are not an excuse. They are your crucible. If you truly have nothing to lose, you are in the most powerful position to gain everything. The only way to harness this power is to keep going, to keep writing, building, creating, even when the world, and perhaps your own mind, tells you to quit. Your unwritten story, your unbuilt dream, demands your absolute, unwavering dedication. Chapter 9. Muhammad Ali standing up to the world. The mid-1960s were a tumultuous period in America. The civil rights movement was gaining ferocious momentum, challenging centuries of systemic injustice. And overseas, the Vietnam War was escalating, dividing a nation and shattering the lives of young men. It was into this charged atmosphere that Cassius Clay, the dazzling, charismatic, and supremely confident heavyweight boxing champion of the world, stepped not just into the boxing ring, but onto the global stage as a figure of profound moral courage. By 1967, Cassius Clay had already transformed himself into Muhammad Ali, a name adopted after his conversion to Islam and his association with the Nation of Islam. He was at the pinnacle of his athletic prowess, an undefeated champion with a unique, poetic flair and an undeniable dominance in the ring. He was the most famous athlete on the planet, beloved by millions, reviled by others for his outspokenness and his conversion. His future seemed limitless, paved with endorsements, lucrative fights, and enduring fame. Then came the Selective Service Act. Ali was drafted into the United States Army. He was ordered to report for induction on April 28, 1967. The world watched, expecting him to comply. Many prominent figures, including other athletes, had served. It was the expected path, the safe path, the patriotic path. But Muhammad Ali had a burning desire that transcended mere boxing titles or material wealth. His desire was rooted in his deeply held religious and moral convictions. He believed unequivocally that the Vietnam War was an unjust conflict, and that as a Muslim, his faith forbade him from participating in a war that violated his principles. "War is against the teachings of the Holy Quran," he declared. "We are not supposed to take part in wars unless declared by Allah or the Messenger. We don't take part in Christian wars or wars of any unbelievers." This was his compass. This was the unwavering conviction that dictated his choice. For Ali, the bridge to compliance, to bowing to the will of the state and sacrificing his conscience for comfort, was already aflame with the inferno of his spiritual truth. He had to stand for his principles, no matter the cost. There was no plan B for his soul. On that fateful day, April 28, 1967, Muhammad Ali arrived at the induction center. When his name was called to step forward, he famously refused. "I have searched my conscience," he stated, "and I find I cannot be true to my beliefs and go to war against these people." With those words, Ali made an irreversible choice that would cost him dearly. He was immediately stripped of his heavyweight title, banned from boxing in every state, and his passport was revoked. He was convicted of draft evasion and sentenced to 5 years in prison, facing a potential $10,000 fine. Imagine the professional and personal fallout. His career at its absolute peak was instantly demolished. The roar of the crowds was replaced by the venom of public condemnation. He was vilified by politicians, media pundits, and a significant portion of the American public. He became a pariah, denounced as unpatriotic and a draft dodger. His income disappeared. His legacy seemed destined for ignominy. Yet through it all, Ali never wavered. He lived the all-or-nothing path with unparalleled conviction. Absolute moral clarity. For Ali, the issue was black and white. His faith and his conscience dictated his actions. This moral certainty removed any internal debate or hesitation. He knew precisely where he stood, even when the entire world seemed to stand against him. Unflinching resilience in the face of sacrifice. He lost everything a professional athlete cherishes: his prime years, his titles, his income, his public adoration. The financial hardship was immense. Yet he never broke. He spent years giving speeches on college campuses, advocating for civil rights and against the war, keeping his message alive even as he was barred from the ring. Transforming adversity into purpose. The enforced absence from boxing, far from crushing him, transformed Ali into something greater than just an athlete. His principled stand, his willingness to sacrifice his career for his beliefs, made him a global icon of resistance and integrity. He became a symbol for the anti-war movement, for civil rights, and for individual conscience. The forced burning of his boxing career ironically forged his enduring legend. Irreversible public stance. His refusal to step forward was not a quiet, private decision. It was a public act of defiance witnessed by the world. This public, irreversible commitment left him no option but to stand by his principles, making retreat politically and morally impossible. For 3.5 years, Ali fought his legal battles, appeals, and the relentless onslaught of public criticism. He never apologized, never compromised his stance. He accepted the sacrifice, knowing that abandoning his principles would be a far greater loss than any title or fortune. Finally, in 1971, the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously overturned his conviction. His boxing ban was lifted. He returned to the ring, older, perhaps a step slower, but with a moral authority and global reverence that transcended his athletic prowess. He went on to reclaim his heavyweight title, engaging in legendary bouts that cemented his status as the greatest. His vindication was complete, a testament to the enduring power of standing for what you believe in, even when it costs you everything. Lesson: stand for your principles, even when it costs everything. Courage defines your legacy. Muhammad Ali's refusal to be drafted was not a calculated career move. It was an act of profound courage rooted in unshakable principles. His story teaches us that true legacy isn't built on accolades or accumulated wealth, but on the integrity of your convictions and your willingness to sacrifice for them. When you are willing to burn the bridges of comfort, popularity, or financial security for the sake of your deepest values, you are defining your character and forging a legacy that will echo far beyond your fleeting triumphs or setbacks. That unwavering commitment to principle is the ultimate expression of courage. Application: identify a value you won't compromise and let it guide your decisions. Many people live their lives by convenience, adjusting their beliefs to fit popular opinion or immediate gain. This leads to a life of compromise, where true greatness and deep fulfillment remain elusive. To live with the courage of Muhammad Ali, you must first identify your non-negotiable values. Define your core values. What are the fundamental principles that define who you are or who you aspire to be? Is it integrity, truth, justice, creative freedom, family, community, environmental stewardship? Don't just list them, truly understand what they mean to you. Assess your red lines. For each core value, what is the absolute limit you will not cross? What action or compromise would feel like a profound betrayal of yourself? For Ali, it was participating in a war he deemed unjust. What is your no-go area? Practice small acts of principle. You don't wait for a grand moment to stand up for your values. Start small. Refuse to participate in office gossip if you value integrity. Speak up respectfully when you see an injustice, even if it's uncomfortable. These small acts build the muscle of courage for larger challenges. Align decisions with values. Before making a significant decision, career, relationship, financial, ask yourself, does this align with my core values? Am I compromising something I hold dear for short-term gain or comfort? If the answer is no, then the bridge to that compromise must be burned. When your decisions are consistently guided by your non-negotiable values, you create a life of profound authenticity and purpose. This clarity of conviction provides the inner compass that allows you to walk away from opportunities that contradict your principles, to endure criticism, and to stand firm when the world demands you compromise. This unshakable alignment of belief and action is the ultimate act of burning the bridges to a life of regret, leaving you only one path, a life lived with integrity, and in doing so, creating a legacy of true courage. Chapter 10. Malala Yousafzai speaking out against the Taliban. The Swat Valley of Pakistan, once a serene and picturesque region, became a battleground for ideologies in the early 21st century. By 2007, the Pakistani Taliban, a ruthless extremist group, had seized control. They imposed their draconian version of Islamic law, banning music, television, and most chillingly, girls' education. Schools for girls were systematically bombed and shut down. Fear became the dominant currency, enforced by public lashings and executions. In this suffocating atmosphere, most people bowed to the terror, silencing their voices to survive. But in the town of Mingora lived a young girl named Malala Yousafzai. Born in 1997, she grew up in a family that championed education. Her father, Ziauddin Yousafzai, was a school owner and a fierce advocate for learning. Malala had known the joy of school, the promise of knowledge, and the boundless dreams it fostered. This was her world, and the Taliban sought to extinguish it. For Malala, the opportunity for education was not a privilege. It was a fundamental right, an unshakable truth, a burning desire that ignited in her soul even as the shadows of oppression lengthened. This wasn't a fleeting wish to simply attend school. It was a deep, visceral commitment to the very principle of education, particularly for girls. She witnessed the lights going out in her community, the forced illiteracy of her friends, and the despair settling upon futures that should have been bright. The bridge to a life of quiet conformity, to accepting the Taliban's decrees, was already ablaze with the fire of injustice and indignity. She refused to retreat from her belief. At the tender age of 11 in 2009, urged by her father, Malala began blogging anonymously for the BBC Urdu, detailing life under the Taliban and advocating for girls' education. She used the pen name Gul Makai. Imagine the courage this demanded. She knew the consequences of defiance. She saw the public punishments. She lived under constant threat. Yet her desire to speak out, to be a voice for the voiceless, was stronger than her fear. Her compass pointed relentlessly towards truth and justice. Her blog gained international attention, and soon her identity became known. She began to speak publicly, appearing in documentaries and interviews, her young voice ringing with an undeniable clarity and conviction. She became a symbol, not just in Pakistan but globally, for the right to education. The more she spoke, the more famous she became, and concurrently, the more dangerous her situation grew. The Taliban's threats against her escalated. This was Malala's all-or-nothing path. Every public statement, every interview, was an act of burning another bridge to personal safety. She was choosing to stand on the death ground, knowing that her activism placed a massive target on her back. She had no armed guards, no political asylum. Her protection was solely her moral conviction and the growing global attention she commanded. On October 9, 2012, the inevitable, horrifying attack occurred. As Malala rode a school bus home, a masked Taliban gunman boarded, asked, "Who is Malala?" and then shot her in the head. Two of her friends were also wounded. The world reeled in shock. The Taliban claimed responsibility, promising to finish the job. Most would assume this horrific attack would break her, silence her forever. It would be a logical human response to retreat from such mortal danger, to seek absolute safety and never speak out again. The path to comfortable obscurity was now open to her, given the trauma she had endured. But this attack, instead of extinguishing her fire, amplified it. It became another bridge, burned not by her choice, but by the violence of her enemies. And from its ashes, her resolve rose even stronger. Miraculously, after critical care in Pakistan and then the UK, Malala survived. Her recovery was arduous, requiring multiple surgeries. But even as she healed physically, her determination remained unblemished. From her hospital bed, she declared, "They thought that the bullets would silence us, but they failed." And then, out of that silence came thousands of voices. She continued to speak out, louder and more powerfully than ever before. Her voice became a global beacon for girls' education and human rights. She published her autobiography, I Am Malala. She addressed the United Nations. In 2014, at the age of 17, she became the youngest ever recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. Malala's unflinching commitment in the face of literal life-or-death stakes showcases the profound power of a cause bigger than self. Uncompromising principle. For Malala, education was not merely a policy, it was a sacred, non-negotiable right. This absolute moral clarity allowed her to defy an armed extremist group with nothing but her voice. Courage forged by threat. The assassination attempt, rather than instilling fear, solidified her resolve. The very act of violence against her proved the urgency and validity of her cause, compelling her to fight harder. The fight instinct, when cornered, became her sole option. Global symbolism. Her story, amplified by the Taliban's brutality, transcended her individual struggle. She became a living symbol for millions, inspiring activists, leaders, and ordinary people worldwide. Her burned bridge to a normal life propelled her onto a global stage. Relentless advocacy. Despite ongoing threats and the need for constant security, Malala has never retreated from her mission. Her foundation, the Malala Fund, continues to champion girls' education globally, proving that her commitment was not a fleeting response to an event, but a lifelong dedication. Malala Yousafzai's journey is a powerful testament that when your cause is non-negotiable, when it aligns with an absolute moral imperative, you will act despite danger. You will find reserves of courage you never knew existed. And in doing so, you will not only transform your own life but inspire millions to follow. Lesson: courage means acting despite danger when your cause is non-negotiable. The true test of courage isn't the absence of fear, nor is it merely facing inconvenience. It is acting directly into the teeth of danger, into the path of potential annihilation, because the principle at stake is so fundamental that retreat is unthinkable. Malala's story reveals that when your cause transcends your personal safety, when it becomes a non-negotiable truth you are willing to die for, then fear becomes secondary. The sheer moral weight of your mission propels you forward, transforming terror into a relentless drive for action. Application: face one fear that's holding you back, speak your truth, no matter the cost. Many people live confined by their fears: the fear of public speaking, the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment, the fear of financial instability, or even the fear of success. Malala faced the ultimate fear: death. While your fears may not be so dramatic, the principle of confronting them is the same. Identify one significant fear that acts as a bridge back to complacency or inaction, and then consciously take a step to burn it. Identify your specific fear, don't generalize. Is it the fear of public failure, the fear of conflict, the fear of exposing your true opinions? Pinpoint it. Determine the truth you must speak. What is the uncomfortable truth you've been avoiding saying? What is the unpopular opinion you hold? What is the difficult conversation you've been deferring? What is the authentic self you've been hiding? Take one irreversible step. Just as Malala started with a blog post, what is the smallest, yet most significant, step you can take to speak your truth or confront your fear? If it's public speaking, sign up for a demanding presentation. If it's financial fear, have that difficult conversation about money with a partner, or publicly set a financial goal that scares you. If it's creative fear, publish that first piece of writing, share that first song, launch that first product, knowing it might be imperfect or criticized. If it's conflict avoidance, initiate the difficult conversation you've been avoiding with a colleague, friend, or family member. This action will not remove the fear, but it will force you to act despite it. It's an act of burning the bridge to comfortable silence or inaction. In doing so, you align your actions with your principles, and in that alignment, you will find a profound source of courage that will propel you toward your burning desire, just as Malala's unwavering voice changed the world. Chapter 11: Alexander the Great Conquering the Known World. The year is 334 BCE. A young Macedonian king, barely 22 years old, stands on the shores of the Hellespont, the narrow strait separating Europe from Asia. His name is Alexander, and he is about to embark on one of the most audacious military campaigns in history. He leads an army of roughly 40,000 men into the heart of the vast Persian Empire, a sprawling dominion that dwarfs his own kingdom in size, wealth, and military might. This is no mere border skirmish. It is a full-scale invasion, a challenge to the greatest power of the ancient world. The logical strategy for such an undertaking would be cautious. Establish supply lines, secure alliances, build up resources, and maintain clear lines of retreat back to Macedonia should the formidable Persian war machine prove too much. But Alexander was not a man of caution. He possessed a burning desire that defied conventional wisdom, to avenge the Persian invasions of Greece a century prior, and more grandly, to conquer the known world. This desire was his absolute compass, directing every audacious move, every seemingly reckless gamble. His commitment to this all-or-nothing path was evident before he even stepped foot on Asian soil. Accounts from historians like Arrian tell of a symbolic act upon landing. Alexander, in a dramatic gesture, is said to have thrown his spear into Asian soil, claiming it as conquered territory. More importantly, before embarking, he had distributed most of his royal lands and possessions among his loyal generals and friends. When asked what he had left for himself, he famously replied, "Hope." This was his version of burning the bridges. By divesting himself of his material wealth and the security of his homeland, he was making an irreversible statement to himself and to his army. There was no comfortable retreat, no kingdom waiting patiently for his return if the campaign failed. His personal fortune was now inextricably linked to the success of the invasion. He had committed everything. The strategic brilliance of Alexander lay in his profound understanding of the psychological impact of having no retreat. He consistently led his armies onto death ground, not by accident, but by design, pushing them beyond what any other commander would dare. Consider his first major confrontation, the Battle of the Granicus River, 334 BCE. The Persians, led by satraps and Greek mercenaries, positioned themselves on the high, steep bank of the river, a seemingly unassailable defensive position. Any frontal assault would be suicidal, exposing the Macedonian phalanx to a barrage of arrows and javelins while struggling through the river's currents. His generals urged caution, suggesting they wait or find a less risky crossing. But Alexander, with his burning desire fueling his audacity, ordered an immediate attack. He led the charge himself, plunging into the river at the head of his cavalry. This was a shocking move, seemingly reckless to his own men and the enemy alike, but it achieved several critical objectives. Psychological shock. The sheer audacity of the attack stunned the Persians, throwing their defensive plans into disarray. They expected a more cautious, conventional approach. Forced engagement. By committing his elite cavalry and a portion of his infantry directly into the river, Alexander eliminated any option for his own troops to hesitate or retreat. They were literally in the middle of a river, fighting for their lives, with enemy archers on the bank. It was fight or drown die. Leading by example, Alexander's personal courage, fighting fiercely at the vanguard, inspired his men to superhuman efforts. They saw their king risking his life alongside them, forging an unbreakable bond of shared desperation and determination. The battle was a bloody, chaotic melee, but the Macedonians, driven by the absolute necessity of success, managed to gain a foothold, eventually routing the Persian forces. The victory was a testament not just to Macedonian military discipline, but to the overwhelming power of audacious, all-in commitment. Later, in 333 BCE, came the Battle of Issus, where Alexander faced the full might of Darius III, the great king of Persia, with an army estimated to be more than twice the size of his own. Again, Alexander's strategic daring shone. Instead of waiting for Darius to deploy his vast forces on open ground, Alexander marched his smaller army through a narrow coastal plain, effectively negating the Persian numerical superiority. He then executed a daring flank maneuver, personally leading his companion cavalry directly towards Darius's position. This was a move of incredible risk, but it was designed to break the Persian command structure. If he failed, he would be cut off and annihilated, but if he succeeded, it would be a decisive blow. His relentless focus on targeting Darius himself, a move that forced the great king to flee the battlefield in panic, demoralized the Persian army and led to their utter collapse. This audacious gamble, made possible by an absolute commitment to victory, allowed a smaller force to shatter a colossal empire. Alexander's entire campaign was defined by this no-retreat mindset. Aggressive forward momentum. He rarely retreated, preferring to push relentlessly forward, even into unknown territories. This created a powerful psychological effect on his men. They knew their only way was deeper into the empire. Personal risk. He consistently led from the front, often dangerously so, enduring numerous wounds. This personal demonstration of commitment eliminated any doubt among his troops about his own dedication to the cause. Absolute belief in destiny. Alexander truly believed in his divine destiny, a conviction that fueled his courage and made the idea of failure anathema. This unshakable belief was his ultimate compass. He continued to push east, conquering Egypt, founding Alexandria, and eventually pushing into India, encountering war elephants and fierce resistance. His army, though exhausted and homesick, continued to follow him because he never gave them a viable option for retreat, and because his audacious spirit consistently led them to improbable victories. His burning desire to reach the ends of the world kept him going, and by burning the bridges of conventional military strategy and personal safety, he transformed himself from a regional king into one of history's most legendary conquerors. Lesson: boldness in the face of overwhelming odds creates momentum that others can't match. Alexander the Great's conquests weren't merely due to superior tactics, but to an unparalleled audacity born from his all-or-nothing commitment. When you face overwhelming odds, the temptation is to become cautious, to play it safe, to conserve resources. But this lesson teaches the opposite. True boldness, a willingness to burn bridges and commit utterly, generates a unique kind of momentum. It shocks opponents, galvanizes your own forces, and creates opportunities that cautious approaches never would. It signals to everyone involved that you are not just playing to win, you are playing to dominate, with no possibility of retreat. This unwavering, fearless forward movement becomes an unstoppable force. Application: take one audacious step toward your goal, even if it feels reckless. It's easy to get bogged down in incremental progress, in planning every contingency. While planning is important, Alexander's story reminds us that sometimes a single, audacious, irreversible step can unlock massive momentum and commitment. This step should feel slightly terrifying, pushing you past your comfort zone without being genuinely suicidal. Publicly announce an impossible deadline. Commit to launching a product, completing a project, or achieving a milestone by a date that seems incredibly ambitious. This forces you to operate with extreme focus and efficiency. Make a significant, non-refundable investment. Pay for a high-cost coaching program, lease an office space you can barely afford, or purchase expensive equipment before you have all the clients or revenue. This financial bridge burning creates immediate pressure to perform. Propose an audacious partnership deal. Reach out to a dream client, a powerful mentor, or a potential collaborator you believe is out of your league. The sheer act of asking and putting your ambition on the line can create unexpected opportunities and force you to raise your game. Launch an imperfect version. Instead of waiting for perfection, launch the minimum viable product (MVP). publish the first draft, or start performing before you feel fully ready. This forces you to get feedback, adapt, and move forward, rather than getting stuck in perpetual preparation. Relocate for opportunity. If your burning desire requires you to be in a specific geographical hub, make the move. Sell your property, quit your job, and commit to establishing yourself there, even if you don't have all the connections lined up. The goal is to take a step that eliminates a comfortable fallback and forces you into a death-ground situation where you must find a way to succeed. This isn't about being foolish. It's about strategically cornering yourself, channeling your fears into fuel, and unleashing the raw, unstoppable power that emerges when retreat is no longer an option. What is that one bold move you've been delaying? Take it. Your empire awaits. Chapter 12. Oprah Winfrey Rising from Nothing. The life of Oprah Winfrey is a testament to the fact that greatness is not born from privilege, but forged in the crucible of adversity and an unyielding commitment to a deeply personal truth. Born into abject poverty in rural Mississippi in 1954, to an unmarried teenage mother, her early years were a brutal landscape of neglect, abuse, and profound hardship. She moved between relatives, enduring a childhood scarred by sexual abuse, deprivation, and instability. By the age of 14, she was pregnant, a pregnancy that tragically ended in the death of her premature son. Her circumstances offered every reason for despair, for succumbing to the cycles of poverty and trauma. Most would have been crushed by such a beginning. But within Oprah, a powerful, unyielding force was stirring, a burning desire not just to survive but to transcend. Her compass wasn't about escaping poverty into mere comfort. It was about finding her voice, connecting with people, and ultimately empowering others through communication. Even in her youth, she possessed an innate ability to connect, to articulate, to draw others in. This wasn't a fleeting want. It was a deeply ingrained compulsion, a lifeline in a world that offered little else. The bridge to a life defined by her devastating past was already ablaze with the inferno of her spirit, a refusal to be limited by her origins. Her journey into media began almost by accident. At 19, she landed a job in radio reading news. From there, she transitioned to television news anchor, first in Nashville, then in Baltimore. She was intelligent, articulate, and poised, but she soon found herself confined by the rigid, objective delivery style of news broadcasting. Her innate empathy, her tendency to cry on air, her profound emotional connection to the stories were deemed unprofessional, a weakness. She was told she was too emotional, too involved. She was deemed a failure as a hard news anchor. This was a pivotal moment. She could have adjusted, conformed, tried to fit the mold of a traditional newsreader to maintain a stable job. This would have been her plan B, her safe retreat into a conventional career path. But for Oprah, compromising her authentic self, suppressing her true nature, was more painful than the risk of failure. Her burning desire wasn't just to be on television. It was to connect on television, to explore the human condition with empathy and raw honesty. The station manager in Baltimore, recognizing her unique ability to connect, despite deeming her unfit for hard news, moved her to a local talk show called People Are Talking. This was a turning point. In the less structured, more intimate format of a talk show, Oprah found her true calling. She wasn't just presenting information. She was facilitating conversations, delving into emotions, and fostering connections. She was finally allowed to be herself, to bring her full, empathetic, passionate personality to the screen. The show thrived and her reputation grew. In 1984, she was recruited to Chicago to host AM Chicago, a struggling local talk show languishing in the ratings. Within months, under her unique approach, the show rocketed to the top. She transformed the format, moving away from sensationalism to deeply personal, emotionally resonant conversations. She wasn't just interviewing guests, she was having a dialogue with them, and by extension, with her audience. This success set the stage for her boldest move. In 1986, she launched the Oprah Winfrey Show as a nationally syndicated program. This was an immense gamble. Syndication was risky, and many talk shows failed. But Oprah, driven by her burning desire to connect on a grander scale, plunged in. She had no corporate safety net, no massive media conglomerate to guarantee her future. Her success hinged entirely on her own ability to resonate with a national audience. But her most significant act of burning bridges came years later, in 1994, when she made the audacious decision to pivot her show away from sensationalistic tabloid topics. At a time when daytime talk was dominated by shouting matches, paternity tests, and shocking reveals, Oprah chose a different path. She famously declared that her show would no longer feature trash TV. She focused instead on self-improvement, literature, spirituality, and philanthropy. This was an incredibly risky move. It meant alienating a significant portion of her existing audience who craved the drama. It meant potentially losing advertisers and risking the enormous success she had built. The media industry warned against it, advising her to stick with the winning formula. The bridge to easy ratings and guaranteed ad revenue was directly behind her, inviting her to stay safe. But her burning desire had evolved beyond entertainment for entertainment's sake. It was now about upliftment, education, and profound personal growth. She refused to compromise that vision for the sake of numbers. This commitment to her higher purpose, this willingness to burn the bridge of conventional talk show success, unleashed her true power. Authenticity as a differentiator. By daring to be authentically herself, by refusing to sensationalize, she created a space of trust and genuine connection that was unparalleled in media. This authenticity became her greatest asset, drawing in an audience hungry for real dialogue. Moral authority. Her courageous pivot endowed her with immense moral authority. She wasn't just a talk show host, she was a cultural arbiter, a guide for personal transformation. This allowed her to expand into publishing, film, and ultimately, building a media empire that reflected her values. Unyielding vision. Her early life had taught her the cost of compromising one's truth. She had lived in circumstances where there was nothing to lose but dignity. This experience forged an unyielding inner vision that could not be swayed by external pressures or the allure of easy money. Empowerment of others. By embracing her own vulnerability and using her platform for positive change, she empowered millions of viewers to confront their own truths, pursue their own growth, and find their own voices. Oprah Winfrey didn't just rise from nothing. She systematically redefined what was possible for a woman from her background, and in doing so, she built a media empire driven by purpose, empathy, and an unwavering commitment to her authentic self. Her story is a profound lesson that your past does not dictate your future if your commitment to your vision is absolute. Lesson: your past doesn't define you, your commitment to your vision does. Oprah Winfrey's early life was a tapestry of hardship and trauma that could have easily condemned her to a life of quiet desperation. But she refused to be defined by what she had endured. Instead, she chose to be defined by her unshakable vision for connecting with people and elevating humanity. This lesson reveals that the most powerful act of self-creation is not the denial of your past, but the fierce commitment to a future that transcends it. When you burn the bridges to old narratives and limiting beliefs about who you are and where you came from, you liberate yourself to build a life dictated solely by the power of your burning desire. Application: reframe your struggles as fuel for your all-or-nothing pursuit. It's easy to view past struggles as burdens, as reasons for why you can't succeed. But Oprah's life demonstrates that hardship, when reframed, can become an inexhaustible source of fuel for your ambition. Identify your core struggle trauma. Acknowledge the pain or disadvantage you've experienced. Don't gloss over it. Extract the hidden strengths. How did that struggle force you to develop resilience, empathy, independence, resourcefulness, or a unique perspective? Oprah's empathy was forged in her own suffering. Her ability to connect with diverse audiences stemmed from her understanding of universal human pain. Connect struggle to purpose. How can your past challenges inform or directly fuel your burning desire? Does your desire to create abundance stem from a past of scarcity? Does your drive to innovate come from experiencing outdated systems? Does your passion for justice arise from witnessing injustice? Transform victimhood into agency. Instead of saying, because of X I can't, reframe it as, because of X I must. Your past doesn't define your capacity for action. It can clarify your imperative for action. Share your story when appropriate. Just as Oprah bravely shared her own vulnerabilities, selectively sharing how your past struggles have fueled your present commitments can build profound connections and inspire others. It transforms your personal journey into a powerful universal lesson. Your hardships are not roadblocks. They are the very raw materials from which resilience, wisdom, and an unyielding drive are forged. By consciously reframing them as fuel for your all-or-nothing pursuit, you transform perceived weaknesses into your greatest strengths, empowering you to burn every bridge to a lesser future and commit fully to the extraordinary life your burning desire demands. Chapter 13. Nelson Mandela, The Long Walk to Freedom. The year is 1964. On Robben Island, a desolate outcrop off the coast of Cape Town, a political prisoner named Nelson Mandela toils in a lime quarry under the harsh South African sun. He is prisoner 466-64, convicted of sabotage and other crimes against the apartheid state. His sentence: life imprisonment. He is 36 years old, already a leader of the African National Congress, ANC, an organization fighting against the brutal system of racial segregation that has systematically oppressed black South Africans for decades. For Mandela, the commitment to ending apartheid was not a mere political ambition. It was a profound, unshakable burning desire that consumed his entire being. His compass was unequivocally fixed on a democratic and free South Africa, where all people, regardless of color, lived in equality and dignity. This was a vision forged in his early experiences of injustice, sharpened by his legal training, and solidified by his leadership within the ANC. The bridge to a comfortable life as a lawyer, to a quiet existence under apartheid's oppressive thumb, was already long gone, incinerated by his unwavering moral imperative. His path to prison was a deliberate, all-or-nothing choice. As a young activist, he had initially advocated for nonviolent resistance, but as the apartheid regime grew increasingly brutal, violently suppressing peaceful protests, like the Sharpeville massacre in 1960, Mandela and the ANC concluded that armed struggle, though regrettable, was the only remaining option. He co-founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, Spear of the Nation, the armed wing of the ANC, knowing full well the immense personal cost this would entail. This decision was a profound act of burning bridges to any semblance of personal safety or freedom. It meant embracing the likelihood of capture, imprisonment, or even death. Once imprisoned, the apartheid regime sought to break him, to force him to compromise his principles. They offered him conditional release multiple times, particularly during the later years of his imprisonment. The conditions were always the same: denounce armed struggle, renounce the ANC, accept the Bantustan system, segregated homelands. These were the bridges back to personal freedom, to seeing his family, to walking free from the lime quarry. But Nelson Mandela, with an almost incomprehensible resolve, refused every offer. He would not compromise his principles, his burning desire for a truly free and democratic South Africa. His response was consistent: I cannot and will not give any undertaking at a time when I and my people are not free. Your freedom and mine cannot be separated. This was the ultimate demonstration of the all-or-nothing mindset. His freedom was inextricably linked to the freedom of his people. To accept a conditional release would be a betrayal of his cause, a retreat from his ultimate purpose. For 27 agonizing years, Mandela endured the unimaginable: hard labor, solitary confinement, constant surveillance, censored letters, and the psychological torment of being separated from his family and the world he fought to change. Yet, his commitment never wavered. His prison cell became his death ground, a place where the only option was to endure, to resist, and to maintain his moral and intellectual integrity. His imprisonment, far from breaking him, inadvertently amplified his power. Unshakable resolve. The long years of isolation and hardship deepened his resolve. There was no room for fleeting doubts. His commitment to the anti-apartheid struggle became absolute, purified by sacrifice. He transformed the indignity of prison into a platform for his enduring spirit. Moral authority. His refusal to compromise, even under the most extreme pressure, endowed him with immense moral authority. The world watched as this man, imprisoned for decades, continued to uphold his principles, making him a living symbol of resistance against oppression. Symbolic power. Mandela became a global icon for justice and freedom. His unwavering endurance inside prison galvanized the international anti-apartheid movement, leading to sanctions and increasing pressure on the South African government. His physical imprisonment, paradoxically, became a tool for liberation. Strategic patience. Unlike many revolutionaries, Mandela maintained a long-term vision. He used his time in prison for study, reflection, and even negotiation, subtly influencing events from behind bars. His refusal to be hurried or broken allowed him to emerge from prison as a statesman, ready to lead, not as a broken man. In 1990, after 27 years, Nelson Mandela walked out of Victor Verster prison, an old man but unbroken, unbowed. The world held its breath. Would he seek revenge? Would he incite further violence? Instead, Mandela, with a magnanimity born of profound suffering and an unwavering commitment to his vision, preached reconciliation and unity. He led South Africa through a miraculous transition from apartheid to democracy, culminating in his election as the country's first black president in 1994. His long walk to freedom was not just a journey out of prison. It was a testament to the power of sustained, uncompromising commitment to a burning desire, even when it demands decades of sacrifice. He burned the bridge to personal liberty for the sake of collective liberation, and in doing so, he transformed a nation and inspired the world. Lesson: endurance in the face of sacrifice turns dreams into reality. Nelson Mandela's life is the ultimate proof that the most profound dreams, especially those tied to fundamental human rights and justice, often demand immense, prolonged sacrifice. His 27 years in prison were not a detour but an integral part of his path to freedom. This lesson teaches us that when your burning desire is truly non-negotiable, you must cultivate an unwavering endurance. The willingness to sustain effort, to suffer setbacks, and to remain committed through years of hardship is what separates fleeting aspirations from transformative realities. It is in this sustained sacrifice, this prolonged refusal to retreat, that dreams are forged into tangible triumphs. Application: commit to a long-term goal, even if it demands years of sacrifice. In a world addicted to instant gratification, the idea of a long-term goal demanding years of sacrifice feels daunting, even impossible. But true burning desires often require precisely this kind of sustained commitment. Define your long walk. What is that truly ambitious goal that cannot be achieved in months but might take years, even decades? Is it building a lasting institution, mastering a complex craft, creating significant social change, or raising exceptional children? Embrace the daily grind. Recognize that the long walk is made up of countless small, often unglamorous daily steps. It's not about grand gestures every day, but consistent, disciplined effort. Find a way to appreciate the process, not just the outcome. Practice delayed gratification. Consciously defer immediate pleasures for long-term gains. This might mean saying no to social events, extra sleep, or spending money on luxuries in favor of consistent work on your goal. Build resilience to setbacks. Understand that the long path will be riddled with failures, rejections, and moments of despair. See these not as reasons to quit, but as inevitable tests of your commitment. Learn from them, adjust, and keep pushing forward. Identify your non-negotiable core. Like Mandela, clarify what you absolutely will not compromise on your journey. What principles, what values, what vision are so central that giving them up is unthinkable, regardless of the duration or intensity of the sacrifice. This non-negotiable core will sustain you through the longest nights. Committing to a long-term goal, especially one that demands years of sacrifice, is the ultimate act of burning the bridges to short-term comfort and instant gratification. It's choosing endurance over ease, profound impact over fleeting pleasure. But it is in this sustained, unwavering commitment, this willingness to walk the long walk, that you will not only transform your burning desire into reality, but also forge a character of unassailable strength and purpose. Conclusion: your bridge is burning. We have journeyed through the annals of history and the depths of human psychology, dissecting the raw, brutal truth of what it takes to achieve extraordinary triumph. We have seen how the timid cling to their safety nets, their plan BS, and inevitably, their mediocre lives. We have borne witness to the uncompromising courage of those who, faced with the grandest ambitions or the direst circumstances, deliberately, strategically, and irreversibly burned their bridges. From Cortés sinking his ships to Harriet Tubman's freedom or death doctrine, from Elon Musk betting every dollar to Joan of Arc's divine conviction, J.K. Rowling's writing through destitution, Muhammad Ali's unyielding stand, Malala Yousafzai's defiance of death, Alexander the Great's audacious conquests, Oprah Winfrey's rise from ashes, and Nelson Mandela's decades of unyielding endurance. The lesson echoes with resounding clarity. True greatness is forged when retreat is not an option. These legends were not reckless. They were not foolish. They were individuals whose burning desires were so profound, so non-negotiable, that they understood the ultimate act of liberation was to eliminate every path backward. They harnessed desperation as fuel, transforming paralyzing fear into relentless drive. They understood that the comfort of a fallback plan is a seductive illusion, a silent killer of ambition, a guarantee of half-hearted effort. Now it is your turn. The stories you have read are not distant historical anecdotes, they are blueprints for your own life. Your burning desire, that deep, unshakable compulsion we discussed, is waiting to be unleashed. But it demands more than just wanting. It demands an all-or-nothing commitment. There's no turning back to the comfortable stagnation you once knew. The choice has been laid bare. This book was not written to coddle you. It was written to shake you awake, to demand that you confront your hesitations and commit fully to the extraordinary life that awaits you on the other side. Are you ready to truly live? Your all-or-nothing path, practical steps to total commitment. This is not a theoretical exercise. This is a call to action. Here are the practical steps to apply the burn the bridges mindset to your own life, right here, right now. Identify your burning desire with unshakable clarity. Go back to the core. What is the one thing above all others that you must achieve? What is the vision that pulls at your soul that would leave you consumed with regret if left undone? This cannot be a fleeting want. It must be so profound that the thought of not pursuing it is more painful than any hardship the pursuit itself might entail. Write it down. Make it concrete. Internalize it. This is your compass. Eliminate one fallback option, visibly and irreversibly. This is the first, terrifying plunge. What is one significant safety net that, if removed, would force your hand and sharpen your focus? If it's a safe job, set a non-negotiable resignation date. Inform your employer. Don't wait until your new venture is fully stable. If it's excess savings, invest a substantial portion directly into your burning desire, e.g., equipment, advanced training, seed money for a project, in a way that makes it truly committed to that goal, not easily accessible for a comfortable retreat. If it's a toxic or distracting relationship environment, make a clean break, create distance, cut off the energy drain that allows you to remain complacent. If it's comfortable complacency, create a public accountability mechanism. Announce your goal and a terrifying deadline to your most skeptical friends or a large online community. Take one irreversible action toward your goal. This is not a small step. It's a leap that closes a door behind you. For an aspiring entrepreneur, sign a binding lease for an office or workshop space before securing all your clients. Launch your minimum viable product to the public, even if it's imperfect. For an artist-writer, book and pay for a solo exhibition, a major concert venue, or a non-refundable writing retreat. Publish your first chapter online, inviting feedback, making your commitment visible. For a social change agent, publicly commit to a major campaign or protest, making your stance unequivocally clear, and initiating the momentum from which there is no easy retreat. This action should be uncomfortable. It should make your stomach drop. That feeling is precisely the point. Build a support system of believers, not doubters. As you burn your bridges, the smoke will attract both allies and saboteurs. Actively seek out and cultivate relationships with individuals who understand the power of unwavering commitment, who champion your burning desire, and who will hold you accountable to your all-or-nothing path. Distance yourself, ruthlessly if necessary, from those who constantly feed your doubts, encourage caution, or implicitly suggest a plan B. Your environment must reinforce your commitment, not undermine it. Reflect daily on your commitment to stay focused. The journey will be arduous. There will be moments of intense fear, doubt, and exhaustion. In these moments, you must recenter. Start each day by reaffirming your burning desire. Look at it, feel it, taste it. Remind yourself of the bridges you have burned. Replay the choice you made. Acknowledge the impossibility of retreat. Visualize the triumph, the desired outcome with vivid clarity. Let that vision pull you forward. End each day by acknowledging your progress, however small, and recommitting to the path. Your bridge is burning. There's no going back. The comfort of the past is an illusion, a phantom limb that will only hinder your progress. You have read the stories of legends who dared to risk everything, who faced down fear and despair, and who, by eliminating retreat, unlocked a power within themselves that defied all odds. The time for hesitation is over. The time for deliberation is done. The only path left is forward. Act now with the full, terrifying, exhilarating force of your being, or live with the gnawing regret of a life unlived, a potential unrealized, a triumph never claimed. The fire is lit. The choice is yours. Embrace it.